This episode of Derek and Matt Love Comics recorded September 23rd, 2018. You can find Derek and Matt Love Comics on Podbean, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, and TuneIn. You can contact us at derekandmattlovecomics@gmail.com. Find us on facebook.com/Derek and Matt, Twitter @DerekandMatt, Instagram @DerekandMatt, and on YouTube @Derek and Matt Love Comics. Winging it through the podcasting world, it's Derek and Matt Love Comics, the podcast where two friends discuss their geek interests. I'm your host, Derek, and with me as always on this journey into mystery is my good buddy, Matt. How are you, Matt?
I am good. If I can avoid my allergies hitting me any harder than they've been hitting me, I might just make it into the winter without having a fall cold.
It'd be nice if you made it a month without having a cold.
I'm a sickly person.
It's almost as if having medical conditions is a bad thing.
It is.
Oh, boy, yeah. No, it's, I don't know about you, but this has been a pretty kind of a crummy week.
I mean, I've basically, I say that I don't want to get, or I say that I want to get through the fall without getting a serious winter cold, but I've basically been sick since I came back from the trade show. With I'm assuming because of the con crud. Not like sick to the point where I'm debilitated, but it's slowed me down this week for sure. So
yeah, there has seemed to be a little bit less of bounce in your voice lately.
Yeah, I hope my voice makes it through this show. So
you're already starting to sound a little raspy. One good thing about this week is we are recording today. This is the first day in, 3 months I'm wearing a sweater.
I would like to say that Derek's going to go from complaining about the heat all the time to complaining about the cold all the time, but he actually doesn't complain about the cold, so.
I like the cold. I just put a sweater on and I get one of my numerous blankets, put it over my shoulders.
I actually prefer the heat, but it was too hot, so.
It's not so much the heat, it's the humidity.
Well, that is true, but I sleep with an electric blanket year-round, so, because I would much rather be warm than cold.
I like being cozy under a pile of blankets in the middle of winter, but that's me. Other than all of this, what have you been up to lately?
So I did get a little bit done this week. I read Batman number 55. Tom King continues to be amazing, and being that it was a story where Batman and Nightwing fight mummies, how can you go wrong with that? Now, I sent you some screenshots of this issue to sort of point out the level of back and forth that Tom King will write, and how he's just absolutely killing it the way he's writing Dick Grayson. Just fantastic stuff. This is just great stuff.
Oh yeah, his Dick Grayson's perfect. You know, he's fun, energetic, has all the quips and that. I really enjoyed the banter, even though Batman doesn't really say much.
Yeah, but that was part of the joke, was that Batman wasn't saying much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a whole conversation where Dick says that it's harder to be making quips all the time than to just grunt at the bad guys while you throw punches. And to prove it, he'll grunt at the bad guys while throwing punches, and Batman has to come up with the quips. And he's like, see, you can't do it. And there's a whole discussion about how Batman never called him old chum. And he's like, you called me chum all the time. And then he's like, but then I realized that chum doesn't just mean a friend. It means, like, fish bait.
Yeah, it's not really a good thing.
Exactly. So that was good. I also read The Return of Wolverine number 1. I kind of didn't expect anything from this. I had not read any of the stuff leading up to it. Way better than I expected it to be. Way better than it had any right to be. I don't exactly know what is going on with Wolverine. It seems like he might be... It seems like this might even not be him. It seems like he might have been cloned or otherwise scientifically resurrected.
I just had something just pop in my mind about this, because when you were talking to me about this the other day, I said that I had heard a rumor that Wolverine in his return had an extra power, something about generating heat from his claws.
Yes.
And now that you mentioned the possibility of him being some kind of experiment or something, I'm wondering if this is going to end up being revealed to be connected to the Red Hulk.
Possibly. So, like, he definitely wakes up in a lab where they've also cloned and brought back to life a saber-toothed tiger and a woolly mammoth. So, it does seem like wherever he woke up is a place where they're bringing dead and extinct things back to life.
I can understand bringing back a woolly mammoth. I mean, they're herbivores. But why on earth would you bring back a saber-toothed tiger?
The other interesting thing is that he came back with little or no memory of who he was. So we're kind of back to, like, mid-'80s amnesiac Logan. To the point that he didn't know his name was Logan. It's to the point where someone keeps calling him Wolverine, and he says, "Who's the Wolverine?" But, so this person needs help. Sort of like in the movie Logan, this person needs help and goes to the Wolverine for help. And, but he's not remembering who he is. And they're, like, basically telling him legends about Wolverine and who he is. And there's a great story in there as to why he wears a yellow costume, which I really enjoyed. I won't spoil it here, but I thought it was one of the high points of the issue.
Well, you have to tell me what that is after we finish recording.
It's really good. So yeah, the whole thing altogether was way better than I expected, and I will definitely read the rest of the miniseries to see where this is going. It's one of the first things I've read from Charles Soule. I know he's done a lot of Star Wars and Darth Vader stuff, as well as other X-Men stuff, but he just hasn't crossed my path into the stuff that I regularly read. Wolverine being one of my favorite characters, although a character that I seldom read the regular series of. And yeah, he's been dead for 5 years or so, but they've had the Old Man Logan series. Old Man Logan himself was a member of the X-Men for a bit there. Old Man Logan being technically another Earth version of Wolverine and not, the traditional Wolverine. So yeah, so there's like some weirdness going on there. But no, I enjoyed this.
It's really been that long.
I believe it has. It's been since before I started working at the store, so.
Oh man, time flies.
Most of my time has been given over to Spider-Man PS4. It really just hit the fan in the stuff I played earlier today before we recorded. No spoilers, but man, does this game just keep delivering. Funny, I got to a point where I thought there's gonna not be as much combat as I would have liked in this game. Boy, was I wrong. Because I hit a point where nothing but combat now. I am about 83% done with the game, so I'm closing in on the end, but I am trying to go around and get better scores on a couple of the challenges and like base scenarios and whatnot, because they give you currency that you use to unlock items, and I want to make sure I get all the items unlocked before I finish the game. And I think I need to get a gold on at least one more challenge to have enough challenge tokens to unlock everything, and then pretty much all the crime that's going on in the city right now is going to give me enough crime tokens, and I might need a couple of base tokens, and I should have everything. I should be able to unlock everything, because I'm really close to unlocking everything. However, I will say, and if you consider this a spoiler, I'm sorry, but there are like 20-some suits, I think, in this game that you can choose from. They have all been revealed to me except one. I don't have all of them, because some of them I can't afford, but they've all been revealed to me except one. And as of right now, I do not have the black Spider-Man suit. So that last one, I really, really hope is the black Spider-Man suit, because I'm going to be really disappointed if that suit's not in the game.
I can't imagine it not being.
I can't either, but I could also totally see them saving that one for last. But, I mean, I got the Scarlet Spider, I got the 2099 suit, I've got the alternate 2099 suit, both of the MCU movie suits, regular Spider-Man costume, and a bunch of various, the costume for the game, and a bunch of various, weird things like the Fear Itself suit, and the couple of different versions of the spider armor, and all these. So a lot of like even suits that we saw once or twice in the comics are here in the game. Spider-Man Noir,
the Fantastic Four one with the FF uniform with the bag on the head, right?
They do not, nor do they have the Future Foundation costume.
Really?
So, like I said, there's one left, and logic to me dictates it's the black suit, but it better be.
I can't imagine it being anything other than that. Well, I was... Okay, for the news section of this episode, I had this as one of the potential news items, but I left it off because I figured we'd be talking about the game anyways. Apparently, according to a headline I saw, this game is the fastest selling PlayStation exclusive of all time.
Yeah, it went from the fastest selling PlayStation game of the year, beating out God of War, to now being the fastest selling PlayStation exclusive of all time. Yes. People love this game. I saw a post. I see these random posts on Facebook from time to time. I saw a post that said, you're the character you last played in a video game. Or you wake up and you're the character you last played in a video game, and you have their life. How messed up are things for you right now? And somebody responded, like 98% of the people are going to respond to their Spider-Man, right? It's the hottest thing in gaming right now,
Right. Yeah, I guess that means it's a success.
Yeah, I have all the skills unlocked, which kind of bugs me because I keep getting skill points for leveling up, and I have nothing to spend them on because I literally have every skill in the game. You think it would just stop giving me skill points, but it didn't. I started doing really good on the combat and stealth challenges, the web swinging challenges. I haven't really gone back to. I feel like I sort of web sling willy-nilly, and I don't really have a ton of control, and I haven't put a lot of effort into like super tight steering or speed control. So I haven't gone back to those yet. But like I said, I only need a couple of challenge tokens, so I think if I get a gold on one more, and I have one stealth one that I haven't golded yet, so if I get that one, I'm good. And then the story really ramped up, and I can't imagine like how much it's going to hit me with in the last 15% here, because things are nowhere near close to being wrapped up, and there's only 15% of the game left. So other than that, I did sort of despite my better thought, I did go to see The Predator. Here's another movie that I saw because I have Movie Pass, and it didn't cost me anything to see. Wait, it did cost me something. It cost me 2 precious hours of my life. Oh my god, this movie was absolutely terrible. I can't say one good thing about it. There was not one moment about it I liked. There was not one joke that I liked. There was not one character that I liked. It's called The Predator, yet there are several predators in the movie. Literally at one point someone says they grew an exoskeleton under their skin. Well, then it's not an exoskeleton. By definition, it is an endoskeleton.
Oh, God. Yeah, I'm right at this moment. I'm looking at the site critical consensus for Rotten Tomatoes, and I quote, "Chaotically hollow action adds up to another missed opportunity for a franchise increasingly defined by disappointment."
Now, I completely disagree with that because Predators, the previous film, was really good and doesn't get enough credit. And most people I've talked to have said, oh yeah, that film was good. But at the time, it didn't do well, and I don't think it's ever found a following. But no, it blows this movie out of the park.
I have yet to see that movie.
You know what that movie does really well? That not only do most Predator movies not do, but most monster movies don't do? They make the human cast really interesting.
Yeah, that's a problem with a lot of horror movies.
Right. I'm not going to say that the Predators are secondary to the human cast, but the human cast are very interesting, and you follow them all the way through. And Topher Grace's character was really good. Adrian Brody's character is really good, and it has nods back to the original Predator that are smart and clever, as opposed to this movie that has nods that are back to the original Predator that are just incredibly stupid. Like when a group of guys are trying to escape and they see a bunch of motorcycles, and the one guy says, "Get to the choppers."
Oh, God.
Yeah, that's a thing that happened. Also,
they do the winking reference.
Yes. Also, there are several references in the film about how the Predator is a stupid name because it's actually a hunter, not a predator.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't the original film originally called The Hunter or Hunter?
Something like that, yeah. Like, not one likable character. Olivia Munn's character is supposed to be a college. Yeah, actually, I'm looking at it right now. Predator was originally titled The Hunter, which would have been more accurate. Her character is supposed to be a college biologist who happens to have an interest in, I guess, would it be xenobiology?
Mm-hmm.
And the moment things start to hit the fan, she instantly is sprinting like an Olympic athlete and shouldering a rifle like a Marine. There's never a moment of, oh, I have to survive. So there's never like an John McClane or an Ellen Ripley moment of, I'm kind of a regular person, but I'm gonna push forward and try and survive. It's just she's just instantly a killmonger. It makes no sense whatsoever. And
well, that's the problem. They don't make movies about Ellen Ripley's and John McClane's anymore. Everyone is a John Wick. John McClane movies aren't even about John McClane characters anymore.
I guess there's one action sequence early in the film, and it literally is really early in the film, that isn't half bad, and that's about the best I can say about it. Literally the first minute and a half of the film, my first thought was, that is the worst spaceship I've seen in a movie in about 20 years. This is where we're going with this film.
It's just, okay, you and I have been discussing this movie for the last couple of days, and it just makes me sad because this film, which I have not seen, has a really good cast. There are a lot of really, really fine, very good actors and actresses in this movie, and Olivia Munn.
Yeah, I mean, I liked Boyd Holbrook quite a bit in Logan. I mean, he's really good in Logan, I think. I liked him in the Hatfields and McCoys, but man, he is just terrible. Thomas Jane's in this film. I did not recognize him. I saw his name in the cast afterwards, and I by process of elimination figured out which one was him. I totally did not recognize that it was Thomas Jane.
I was looking up the cast list last night, and I was surprised at how many character actors and familiar faces that I know from TV and other movies are in supporting roles in this, that are all very good actors. So, yeah, it's just, this really seems like it comes down to being a issue with the script and direction.
And Jake Busey, who has kind of brightly colored hair, is walking around the part of the movie he's in a lab coat buttoned up to his neck, with big goggles on and waving his arms about. He's totally Beaker from the Muppets.
I really wonder if that was a deliberate choice.
It kind of feels like it.
Did he say meep meep?
He didn't, but he might as well have. So just to bring it back really quick on, like, you had speculated, because it was Shane Black and Fred Decker, that this was going to be like an adult version of the Monster Squad. So they definitely try to make it funny. Like, I don't think any of the funny stuff was funny at all, but like they tried to make it funny. And I could make an argument that that's what they were trying to do, is make that type of movie. But then I can also make the argument that they failed on every level. So I'm starting to get to the point where I don't think Shane Black is actually a good filmmaker.
I have to take exception to that because The Nice Guys is one of my favorite movies of the last 20 years. I love that film. I'm very sad that this movie, from your experience at least, is a mess. I don't know. Maybe he just took it less serious and they kind of half-assed it. I don't know. I have no...
I mean, I honestly don't know what he was going for.
It's a shame. I mean, the trailers and the teasers and everything for this movie did not look good to me, but they look like they might be something that would be stupid fun and entertaining. I'm still willing to give the film a shot once it comes out on video.
Mm-hmm.
Although he's definitely not one I'm buying the day it comes out.
Yeah, I'm not buying it. Yeah, Rotten Tomatoes, 34% critics, 47% audience score right now. Average rating 2.9 out of 5.
That's bad.
It just wasn't good. And I wanted it to be good. I didn't go in thinking it was going to be bad or hoping that it was going to be bad. Actually, I went in a little bit thinking it was going to be bad because we'd already heard from someone else that we know that they had seen it and they didn't care for it. But
also, the trailers were really poor.
I thought the trailers were terrible. I thought a lot of the stuff going into the film was like it couldn't decide whether it wanted to be an action movie or a comedy, and it never becomes a comedy because none of the stuff that's supposed to be funny is ever funny. So that was a massive disappointment. What did you do this week?
Oh boy. Other than an incredible mountain of stress this week, I actually been listening a lot to a podcast. I ended up subscribing. Well, okay. Backtrack a little bit. I posted a picture of a crate I bought on Thursday to put some of my trade paperbacks in next to my bed under my night table because I don't really have a lot of room for trade paperbacks and stuff I have to read on my night table. So I took a picture of that and I posted it to my Facebook page, and one of my friends commented on it, wondering what one of the books that I had was. And it's one of those books by the writer. I'm trying to remember his name. All of a sudden I'm blanking. Oh yeah, Robert Damon Schneck, who the book was originally published as The President's Vampire, and it's a collection of basically each chapter is broken down into talking about different like weird, bizarre, anomalous historical records of different things that happened within the U.S. Like one chapter was about them finding mummies that were like the size of like I don't know, like I think less than a foot tall in the American Southwest, which were supposed to be adult mummies, and then like a lot of different things like that. And the reason why I was asked is because the book was republished I think the beginning of this year as The Bye-Bye Man, because to tie it into that movie when it came out, because that movie was loosely based on one of the chapters in the original book about a bunch of news articles about a supposed creature or haunting that happened decades ago. Anyways, I was explaining that to a friend of mine, and I ended up deciding I was gonna want to look up to see if there were any other kind of books I would be interested in that dealt with paranormal or anomalous historical record or things like that. So while I was Googling stuff, I realized I had forgotten. I had heard about it a while back and I was interested in it, but I never got around to actually trying it. The podcast Lore by Aaron Mahnke. And I realized, well, I have iTunes now. That means I can subscribe to podcasts. So I went to iTunes and I ended up I did a search, found it, subscribed to it, it automatically downloaded every single episode that has been produced. And I think that's like 98 episodes over the last 3 years.
You can change that in your settings so it doesn't do every episode if you would. I mean, if it bothers you.
This show, okay, yeah, no, well, here's the funny, I wasn't expecting that because I subscribed to a few other podcasts last month, and it didn't do that. But with this one, it automatically downloaded everything, which I was okay with because the episodes basically average 20 to 30 minutes, so they're not very long. Anyways, I downloaded those, and I started listening to them, and I think I've listened to the first 14 or 15, and I am really liking it. It's very interesting podcast, and the topics are stuff that I have been interested in since I was a kid. I don't know if every kid goes through this, but I certainly did. When I was a child, I would hear, you'd hear like campfire stories and urban legends and that. Growing up, I also used to watch the Ripley's Believe It or Not that was hosted by Jack Palance in the early 80s. I used to watch that and other shows like Leonard Nimoy's In Search Of and Unsolved Mysteries ended up being a huge thing for me when I was a kid. I think I was 10, 11 when that started.
Okay.
So I've always been fascinated by the idea of cryptozoology, UFOlogy, paranormal stuff, ghosts, hauntings, urban legends, folklore, myths, all that stuff. And basically that's every single episode of this show is essentially dealing with stuff like that. Just in the first 13 or 14 episodes I've listened to, they've dealt with stuff like the first episode was about vampires dealing with the Mercy Brown case. That was the first recorded vampire case in the Americas in the 1880s. The one that it was discovered years later that Bram Stoker actually had press clippings from it that he had before he wrote Dracula.
Okay.
So it's considered the story that inspired that. That was a case where a family one by one were dying from tuberculosis, and when they were worried that the next person in the family was going to die, people in the town and that started to dig up the corpses to see if they were if they were inhuman, and they found the first couple that they dug up were decomposed because they'd been dead for a decade. And then when they got to Mercy Brown, who had died just a couple months before in the winter and was kept in a mausoleum until she'd be buried, which was basically an ice box, and they found out, oh my goodness, she didn't decompose. So they, mutilated the body because she was a vampire.
Mm-hmm. And
this caused vampire panic that went throughout New England. Other episodes in this deal with the legends about werewolves. There's one about the building of the Hoosac Tunnel in the Berkshire mountain range in Massachusetts, and that was a really interesting episode because just a whole lot of disturbing accidents and incidences and haunting stuff and that. There's stuff on H.H. Holmes, Robert the Doll, which is one of the famous haunted evil dolls. This one in Florida, and I don't know. I find this stuff fascinating. I don't necessarily believe most of the stuff, the supernatural aspects of that, but I just find the idea and just the idea of folklore and how stories get told and embellished and changed over time. I just find it fascinating. So I'm very much enjoying listening to this.
I actually listened to an episode of both Talk is Jericho and Stuff You Should Know, where they talked about not specifically about certain urban legends, but more about how urban legends work. Like how they get out there and how how there's this basically basic psychology thing that's a universal thing among humans on how these stories can become urban legends. And it was a lot of what you're talking about, where do these stories come from type thing. It was really interesting.
The thing with urban legends is that they're almost always like fairy tales used to kind of discourage certain social behaviors.
Yes.
I mean, that's something we see all the time in urban legends, where it's, well, if you're sexually promiscuous and you're going to go to the lover's makeout, there's going to be a hook-hand killer that's going to murder you. Or if you obsess too much about your appearance and that, and you get that beehive hairdo, spiders are going to nest inside. Stupid stuff like that. It's all about getting people to fit the norm. I just find it, even outside of that, I just find it fascinating, and I've always been interested in kind of the macabre side of things since I was a kid. Even though that was the thing. When I was in school, my interests really dovetailed heavily with what we today would call goths. Although I was never technically a gothic because I was too much of a geek and I didn't really wear much black. I don't think you can wear blue jeans and sneakers and be a goth, but I'm not 100% sure about that.
You'll have to check with somebody.
I've got a few friends. I can ask them. But yeah, I'm really enjoying listening to this podcast. In fact, I'm probably going to try to get a few more episodes in later on.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. Other than that, not really much for myself. But you and I did take a moment where I should say, I think 88 moments last night to
88
get in.
minutes.
Well, 88 minutes. I'm sorry. Yeah, we decided to watch another one of our Halloween movies last night. And which one did we watch?
Killer Klowns from Outer Space.
I'm sorry. I love this movie.
It's a really fun movie. So
It's simultaneously stupid and brilliant. It's dumb, but it's really really clever. And it's never not entertaining to me.
no, yeah, I agree. It's I needed something after the Predator that I would actually enjoy, so I watched Killer Klowns from Outer Space. Because popcorn guns and whatnot are great.
Killing people with cotton candy.
And apparently, if you're in a biker gang and you pick on a little clown who rides up on a bicycle, you are really impressing your friends until he knocks your head off.
Oh gosh, yeah, I don't know. This movie is just ridiculous, but I just love this film. It's kind of funny. When I stop and think about it, I watched this movie a lot actually, at least once, sometimes twice a year, if not more.
I mean, it's the third or fourth time I've watched it since I bought it a couple of years ago.
That was the first time you'd seen
Yeah,
it?
I'd never seen it before that, so.
Yeah, I had seen it when I was younger. I ended up, I think I might have saw it on TV, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. Around 10 years ago, I ended up buying it on DVD. And I watched it, like, I think once a year for a couple of years, but then I didn't watch it again really until you got it. But since then, I've watched it like almost half a dozen times, just in the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
I am actually thinking that next year, October of 2019, that we might actually devote an episode to this film. We'll have to wait and see. Probably no, I could completely forget about it by then.
Put it on the schedule now.
That far in advance? What the heck?
We mapped out the whole year at the beginning of the year.
But we didn't do to October of next year.
No, we mapped out a year at the beginning of the year. We could map out a year right now, which would take us to next October.
All right. No, we'll think. I'll think about it. We'll talk about it later. I guess that's it for what we've been doing this week then.
It looks like it.
Yeah. Okay. I guess we'll move on to the news of the week. We're back with our news of the week, and this week we have 5 things we are going to discuss. I guess one of them is not technically a news item. Actually, 2 of them kind of aren't, but what the heck. The first thing up is we have finally gotten a trailer for Marvel Studios' Captain Marvel movie. So let's discuss it.
It was alright.
Yeah, it was shockingly underwhelming. The thing about it is, I didn't dislike the trailer. I thought the movie looked interesting enough, but there was nothing in the trailer that was wow-worthy.
No, okay, so there's that. There was nothing that was wow-worthy, and I'm starting to get to the point where I feel like Marvel makes great movies and they don't know how to make good trailers for them. Because the last several Marvel films, I've been down on the trailers and ended up liking the movies, except for Thor Ragnarok. So,
yeah, I think the only film that had good trailers was Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah, and it's not even that they were great, but they didn't make me go, I'm still gonna see it, I guess. Which, I mean, that's how I felt about the trailers for Infinity War. I was like, there's no way I'm not gonna see it, but these trailers don't make me want to see it, you know?
Oh, no, I understand completely. I loved Infinity War, but the trailers just didn't do anything for me. I watched them thinking that there was nothing in the trailer that said you have to see this movie, which was weird because this is a movie they've been building up to for 10 years at that point. Well, maybe not 10 years, at least since the first Avengers film.
Right. I
So,
mean,
yeah,
the effects look good, she looks good, the costume looks good, but nothing about the trailer said, this is a thing that I've been waiting for.
Yeah, if anything, the major thing that I took from the trailer was that I have more questions than anything about this movie, because there were things about her origin which really confused me. It made me think, boy, they are really retconning a lot of her origin, which is fine, because I wouldn't expect them to be 100% true to the comic, because there's no way they're going to do a alien wishing machine for a major Marvel Studios film. Although I say that, and they got a magic glove that you snap your fingers and change reality, so I don't know. But yeah, it's just, the whole thing with her having, they implied that she was abducted, and the idea that she'd been working with an alien army, the Kree, for God knows how long, and has no memory of being a human except for like spotty images and flashes in her head, and none of that's from the comics. So I was just really thrown for a loop by all that. Just kind of watched the trailer going, huh?
Yeah, there's very little there's very little to remind you of the comics here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Who knows? As you said, they have a history of bad trailers, but the movies tend to be really good. They earn the benefit of a doubt. So I'm sure the movie's going to be fine.
Hey, can we talk about this? Can we talk about this thing about people complaining that she's not smiling?
Oh God, I was wondering if we were going to discuss that or not. Yeah, oh gosh, 2 days. I didn't know this was a thing until a couple of days ago. I saw a post online resharing someone's tweet about this, and I thought, oh my God, I can't believe people are actually complaining about this. Oh. Of all the things to take away from the trailer, the girl's not smiling enough.
So besides the
condescension,
stupid idea that, oh, sweetie, you look so pretty if you smile, type thing.
God.
Besides that,
yeah.
For all you, and I think a lot of our listeners probably don't fall in this category, but for all the people that don't have a lot of knowledge about comics, Carol Danvers is a character that my introduction to her was when she was a warbird in the 90s, and the first things I knew about her was troubled childhood, alcoholic, things always going not her way. She's not a happy character. I mean, I've talked about this before with the Life of Captain Marvel book that they're publishing right now, that I think it's great, but I can't recommend it because it's kind of depressing. She's not a smiley character. She grew up in an abusive home. She went through bouts of alcoholism. I had a hard time in the Air Force. She had terrible things happen to her en route to getting her superpowers. Somehow in the midst of all that, she also published a women's magazine. I never quite reconciled those two things. But, she's not a smiley, happy person.
Yeah, well, the thing with Carol Danvers is that throughout her various series and that, the character kind of changed from period to period to fit different needs socially. Because when you look at her early stuff in the 70s, she was basically just a supporting character in the Captain Marvel comic originally, where she was just Air Force. I think she was a captain at that point.
Yeah.
Carol Danvers, and she was just the liaison between Captain Marvel and the American military. And then after a few years, she ends up getting her powers, and they basically kind of turn her into their version of Power Girl, who had debuted by that point. Because originally her name was Carol Danvers. Literally had Supergirl going around, flying around on comics and covers that before that as secret identity, Linda Danvers.
Right.
Yeah, I think she was using... Yeah, it was Linda was the original Silver Age.
Well, it was Linda Lee.
Linda Lee Danvers. Sorry. But then, by this point in the mid-70s, you had Power Girl was this big, huge, character that was brassy, tough as nails, punch first, blonde, buxom girl in DC Comics, Justice Society Comics, where she was kind of, feel a little sad saying this, but she was kind of almost a parody of feminism at that time, the whole women's lib thing and that. So she was constantly fighting and, getting in, argumentative character, getting into arguments with, like, Wildcat in particular, a chip on her shoulder. And then whenever Marvel turned Carol Danvers into Miss Marvel, or Ms. Marvel, I should say, and she got her own solo series, it was basically just that. She was almost the exact same character, the brassy, blonde, buxom chick with the punch first attitude and the women's lib, argumentative type personality. And that basically went on. But in the 80s, she kind of faded away for most of the 80s. And then the 90s, they kind of brought her back, and that's whenever you end up with the introduction with the idea of the alcoholism, and they start giving much more depth to the character and building up this, like, really tragic childhood background. But then whenever they finally started to try to do a much more of a push of the character in the 2000s, especially under the Brian Reed series, they were kind of giving her much more of a balanced personality, where she was actually a lot more fun. That's actually the characterization I like the most for the character.
I've sort of always found her to be fun, but she has this, underlying sort of anger to her, which I am completely fine with. I think it's just part of the character.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree with that. And that is something that has been much more a focus of the character since she was made Captain Marvel in the comics under, it was Kelly Sue DeConnick, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's become much more in the foreground. So I kind of see a lot of elements of that in the trailer. So yeah, this idea, it's just funny that of all the characters that they're going to complain about not smiling, it's going to be Carol Danvers, the feminist icon superhero, and the whole thing with the tragic background and everything is just. People are so tone deaf today. It is incredible. But I think we should probably move on from that. I know I rambled a little bit near the end there. Next thing in the news, we have Joaquin Phoenix Joker. They revealed his Joker makeup for the Joker origin film that's being produced by Martin Scorsese and directed by guy whose name just slipped right out of my head, even though Todd Phillips. Yeah. Sorry, for a second there it went away, but it came right back. So yeah, we finally got our first look at his makeup and at his Joker suit.
This sure looks like an old guy in generic clown makeup.
That's what it looks like to me. And even the suit, the colors are wrong.
Yeah, it's just generic clown. I like Joaquin Phoenix quite a bit. I was willing to give this a chance because I think he could do well with this, but I also don't understand the point of this movie, and especially with it not being connected to the DCEU. And nothing about this makes me excited or interested in it. It's just a generic clown look.
Yeah, not only does it have nothing to do with the DC Films universe, it's also a complete retcon and reimagining of the character, and the character giving the character a formal origin, and everything's different. It's an Elseworld inside of an Elseworlds inside of an Elseworlds line. I just don't get the point of this film. But yeah, the outfit, he's got the suit and his loud colors and that, but it's not the right colors, and the makeup is completely wrong. Plus the idea is, I'm assuming that he actually is wearing makeup.
Seems like it.
He doesn't actually physically transform into the Joker. Are we not getting that in this movie?
I mean, we didn't really get that in The Dark Knight, so...
It's true, but every other version, he has naturally green hair, the white face, and the red lips.
Yeah, I don't know. I liked the pictures of him out of makeup much better than I liked the pictures of him in makeup. So
I just don't get it, because it's not the right clown face. If anything, it looks more like they based it on the clown mask that Heath Ledger wears in the opening sequence of Dark Knight, because it looks more like that than it does the Joker. It doesn't look like an official Joker movie. It looks like something like a knockoff film. It looks like a generic clown bad guy film.
Yeah, no, yeah, I agree. As I said, I don't really understand the point of this movie, so making it something so outside the box. Now, I'm also going to point out that every Joker since Nicholson, we've said, that doesn't really look like the Joker. So,
I get that, but the thing is, they were still recognizable as the Joker. This really isn't.
I kind of think it is, but I'm wondering if I would think that if it wasn't presented to me as the Joker.
I would see that. I would think, oh, that's a bad guy, criminal that looks kind of like the Joker, but it's not the Joker, because clearly the makeup's all wrong and the outfit's wrong. You don't do a Batman movie and have Batman in a red cowl and cape and with no ears and say, well, it's Batman. No, it's not.
I mean, yeah, I agree, but I don't know. I mean, it's a wait and see situation. I don't think it looks great. I still don't know what the point of the movie is, but
yeah, I'm really kind of torn, because this movie, everything I know about this film, everything I'm aware of it, given who's directing and who's producing it, who's starring in it, this could either be an insanely brilliant piece of filmmaking and just an incredible movie once we actually get to see it, or a complete and utter train wreck. I can't see it being somewhere in the middle. I just, absolutely everything I hear about this, not a single thing has made me say, well, that assures me. Because nothing has. It's just weird. Any last thoughts on that?
I mean, I totally get where you're coming from. I'm not going to say you're wrong to think that. But I don't know. Not wowed is my last word on it.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give it a chance, but...
Well, I guess, you know what? I will point out that to me, with both Ledger and Leto, when the makeup was revealed and didn't look like the traditional Joker, both of them made me go, oh, that's interesting. Mm-hmm. This didn't make me do that. This made me go, a generic clown. So that is a knock against it, I guess.
Yeah. The clown makeup's more John Wayne Gacy than anything.
And I'm wondering if that's what this movie is going to be, is more John Wayne Gacy than the actual Joker. Because that's the vibe I'm getting, too.
Yeah, everything that we've seen for it does kind of give it a really, really scuzzy late 70s, early 80s, which is the right period for Gacy.
Right.
Kind of vibe, where it's just all grimy and sleazy.
Right.
Maybe that's exactly what they're going for. It's just, I just wish the makeup looked more like the Joker and not generic clown. You know, I kind of want to come up with a generic clown name for this, not the Joker character. Can't call him the prankster. That's already taken. Joke Man. There we go. It's the origin of Joke Man. Okay, we're going to move on to the third news item, and that is Disney is reportedly in early development for a series of Marvel Cinematic Universe limited series revolving around different characters from the Marvel Studios films for their upcoming Disney streaming service. I wrote upcoming streaming service. I have no idea if that's actually started or not.
It has not.
Okay. According to insiders, Loki and Scarlet Witch will each have a series, with actors Tom Hiddleston and Elizabeth Olsen said to be expected to return to the roles. I am amazed at this and kind of don't really know what to think about this.
I mean, I'm gonna go to my usual thought on Loki, and I know this is probably an unpopular thought. I love Tom Hiddleston as Loki. I really wish he would stop playing the character. And I say that. Let me finish.
Sorry.
There's a reason I'm saying this. I say that because I don't feel like Loki has been properly utilized in most of his movie appearances. He's never really given anything to do. Hiddleston plays a great Loki. but I don't feel that the character of Loki has ever been given proper amount to do. I liked him in the Dark World when he kind of has his meltdown, and I liked him in Infinity War, and everything else is just like, why is Loki here? Like, First Avengers, I don't understand why Loki's there. Most of Ragnarok, I don't understand why Loki's there. Hiddleston plays him great. I'm not knocking Hiddleston at all. I just don't think the character's used properly.
The thing about that is, first, I don't think you're wrong, but second, after everything the character has been through in the Thor and Avengers movies, I don't know where you go with him.
There is that too.
What can they do with him in? I'm assuming these are just going to be 8 to 10 episode series.
Right.
What is there more to say about the character? The character was the hungry middle child, or who was second class child with his older brother, who was the one that the father loved, and blah 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 blah. Then you end up with the whole thing of developing the relationship further, and the complicated relationship between him and Thor, and then over time Loki starts to becomes this horrible villain, deteriorates into that, but then starts to rebuild over the series of the films, and in the end sacrifices himself and truly dies, a hero who finally gave up his life to try to save his brother, who 2 movies before you wouldn't be wrong to think that would never happen. So I don't understand where to go with the character.
Yeah, I mean, they could very simply... The solution, I guess, is to have the series be set in a previous... Like, to me, I guess when he's ruling Asgard as Odin, but then it's not really... You're not really showing Loki, so...
Right. To me, the best, most untapped period would be what he did between Thor 1 and Avengers 1. Because we see him fall into infinity,
right,
the universe, and then all of a sudden he shows up in the next film, Avengers, with an army. And it's like, well, how the heck did he get from point A to point B? So that would be interesting. But really, you're going to have to say in the past, I do not want him being brought back to life from the dead just for this movie, or just for this series, because
right.
I think it cheapens the evolution of the character.
Yeah, I agree.
Scarlet Witch, I love Elizabeth Olsen, but she really has not had very much to do in her 2 Avengers films and Civil War. But, we've gotten kind of gleams of things. So I would be very interested in seeing them do something with her, because she's much more of an open canvas.
Yeah, I mean, I'd dig on a Scarlet Witch Vision series, like
oh
romantic,
gosh,
like a rom-com type sitcom show with them, or
you do a drama with the 2 of them, with them back after the events of the next Avengers movie, and you deal with the ramifications of their relationship as Vision has lost his humanity and is trying to regain it.
Right.
And how that affects Wanda. That would be fascinating. See, that is something where there is a need. There's no real need. There's nothing that really needs to be said about Loki at this point. But Scarlet Witch and Vision, yeah, I watch the hell out of that. Or, yeah, as you said, just do a romantic comedy, because that'd be great.
Speaking of which, I've kind of stopped reporting when I've watched Infinity War, because we've been watching it at work and everything else, and I've seen it a ton of times at this point. Man, at the end, when she's gonna destroy the gem in his head, those 2 almost steal the movie at that point.
Oh, God. What's funny is, earlier today, my sister came in the room and asked to borrow that movie. So I lent her my Blu-ray, and just before we started recording, I went into the other room to tell her that we were going to be recording this episode, and I would be unavailable for the next couple of hours. And it just so happened to be that scene. And it's her killing, going through the anguish, killing, spoilers, Vision, and then Thanos saying, "I understand, my child," and then bringing him back to life and then killing him. It just happened to be that scene. But yeah, these are 2 actors who are so good and so good in their roles, and they are underutilized.
Just when Vision says, I'm trying to remember the exact line, and he says, "You could never hurt me," and then he says, like, "It's just you and me," like, it gets me every time. And I know everyone talks, and I'm included, everyone talks about when Spider-Man dies as being like the big emotional moment, but that moment is so powerful between those two.
Yeah, no, these are two incredibly gifted actors. Yeah, there's a reason Paul Bettany's one of my favorite actors in the last 20 years. Because the guy is just brilliant, just constantly giving great performances. I would definitely love to see a Scarlet Witch and Vision series come out of this. Because, yeah, that is a story that can be developed. Just what really gets me is, what other characters could they actually develop and give series? Who would benefit from that? Do you have any ideas?
I mean, before they made Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I would say the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, but they didn't really handle that right, so...
They did not. My guess is that this is kind of almost like they're going to be doing their own version of the Netflix shows.
Yeah, it's what it seems like.
Much more... The Netflix shows are supposed to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but they're really a separate thing at this point. They don't contradict it, but they're kind of to the side of it.
Mm-hmm.
But this seems like it's something that is going to actually be much stronger connection. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the ideas of who they could do. Oh man, what would be great would be rural comedy with Hawkeye and his family living on the farm. Do hee-haw with Hawkeye. Not hee-haw, Green Acres with the Hawkeye. There.
Also, I didn't realize we were so close, just because you mentioned the Netflix shows. They were like less than a month away from Daredevil Season 3.
I forgot that was the thing that was actually happening.
Well, like, they were doing Season 2s of everything else, so I was thinking that Daredevil was off the table for now. I didn't realize they were actually making a Daredevil Season 3 right now, and I don't keep up with these shows. I will binge Daredevil the night it comes out.
At some point, I'm gonna have to try to catch up and watch any of these shows.
I mean, I should finish them out, but Daredevil Season 1 is as close to a perfect season of a TV show as you're ever gonna get. And Season 2 is still really good.
The funny thing to me is the show I'm most interested in is Luke Cage, because of everything I've heard about it from you.
I haven't watched any of Luke Cage.
I guess it was from other people then. I just find it funny because I do not like the character in the comics, and I did not like Brian Michael Bendis' take on the character. And he was the writer who predominantly wrote the character for the last 10 years or more, 10 or 14 years. But that's the one show I've been kind of the most interested in.
I mean, I should say I watched Defenders and most of Jessica Jones, which Cage appears in, but I haven't watched any of Cage's actual series.
Well, then that's it. That you talking about the characterization of Luke Cage.
Yeah, I mean, he's a charming dude.
I just don't find him charming at all in the Bendis stuff.
And they did a really interesting choice by not having him be loud, angry, and boisterous. He's just like cool and constantly calm.
That is a cool angle. Yeah, I'm trying to think of other characters that have been underutilized that could benefit from this, but I'm kind of drawing a blank. Part of me wants to say Sif, give her kind of a Wonder Woman wandering adventurer on Earth story. So,
that'd be cool.
But I don't know if Jamie Alexander would be available for that. I don't even know if her TV show is still going. I think it is, but I'm not sure. Anyways, we actually have more news from Disney, so we're going to move on to that. And in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter for its annual THR 100 list of the most powerful people in Hollywood, Disney CEO Bob Iger has admitted that the recent Star Wars franchise films have been, quote, a little too much, too fast, end quote, and that they will slow down the releases of future films after J.J. Abrams' Star Wars Episode 9. But, quote, that doesn't mean we're not going to make films, end quote. Iger was also asked about incorporating Fox's Fantastic Four, X-Men, and Daredevil film franchises into Marvel Studios and whether Kevin Feige would supervise them. Iger replied, quote, it only makes sense for Marvel to be supervised by one entity, end quote, and that, quote, Kevin has a lot of ideas, end quote. What I found interesting in the article is that Bob Iger actually took a lot of the blame for the Star Wars stuff, because he said that he was the one kind of pushing for them to pump out the movies faster.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm sort of cool with the once a year.
I like the once a year thing. I think the problem was that Solo came too soon.
Well, yeah, they should have kept it in December. So Solo being less than 6 months from Last Jedi, and then the whether you agree with it or not, the bad reception Last Jedi got sort of made this year like Star Wars hitting a wall, you know?
Right. Solo had that's two. Well, okay. There's three main problems with that. The first is, yes, there was not enough lead time for Solo, coming so close after Last Jedi, so they weren't really able to properly promote the film. Second is, as you said, too much backlash from Last Jedi, even though Last Jedi did boffo numbers. I said boffo. And the third thing is, you also had this young guy who is maybe not unknown, but virtually unknown, replacing an iconic performance by Harrison Ford.
Right.
So you had those three things, and I think it was just a perfect storm that caused the movie to underperform. It's just funny to me that we're talking about a movie that made 400 million worldwide as if it was a failure. But you have to consider that I don't know what the final number was for Last Jedi, but Rogue One made $1 billion worldwide, and I believe The Force Awakens made up to $2 billion.
Right.
So 400 million compared to that that's a disappointment. But the thing is, yeah, I like the idea of one Star Wars movie a year. I don't have any problem with that. I'm glad that they are going to keep making Star Wars movies. It's just, yeah, I don't know. I just think that they need to give just a little more distance between the films.
Yeah, I mean, we could go to every other year or whatever, and I'd be fine. Then again, like, there's two Marvel movies a year most years.
2, 3 at this point.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's only 2 this year, but there's oftentimes 2 or 3 in a year.
No, there were 3 this year. This year we had Black Panther, then we had...
I forgot about Black Panther. Yeah, you know, you're right.
Then Ant-Man and the Wasp. Yeah, and it was 3 last year, and there's going to be 3 next year.
I kind of feel like Solo is going to find a better audience on home video.
The funny thing is, I've been talking about it with friends and that in various chat rooms, and I said that Solo on Blu-ray was not a big priority for me, and I'll get it eventually. And I got a little bit of blowback because people actually like this movie a lot.
I feel like I'm actually really looking forward to seeing it again on home video. So
I actually am considering picking it up at the end of the month now because I would really like to see it, and quite frankly, Chewbacca. I love Chewbacca, so it's a movie with Chewbacca. I'm gonna want to see it. Give me a Chewbacca solo film. Just leave out the family and Life Day. Can you imagine if we did a Christmas episode all about the holiday special?
We would not be the first, 10th, or 100th podcast to do so.
Yeah, it might be the last episode we ever do because I don't know if I could make it through watching the entire thing.
I've never seen it all the way through. I've only seen clips of it here and there.
To be fair, I've only seen clips. I've never watched it in one complete setting.
I've listened to detailed reviews of it before, but...
I am terrified that I would go into such an existential angst I would kill myself after watching it.
Well, let's not do that.
Yeah.
As for Fantastic Four and X-Men, yes, I agree. Let Feige handle it. And
yeah, I think he's proved at this point he knows what he's doing, even if Disney's still gonna fire James Gunn.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You know, last week was the first show we hadn't talked about James Gunn in like 6 weeks.
Oh boy, yeah. Yeah, I was looking up the Podbean listing of all our episodes, and a few days ago, and just looking at where we have for each episode, well, what's in the news, and James Gunn. And the next week is, and more about James Gunn. Next week is, yep, James Gunn. It just goes on and on and on. Oh my goodness. I feel kind of weird not talking about him, which is kind of why I name dropped him. But yeah.
We talked about this off of the show. I'm going to mention it here. I had completely forgotten that they made a New York Comic-Con exclusive Pop Funko vinyl of James Gunn that looks essentially exactly like me. Because when it came out, I remember making the joke, oh, I should buy that because it looks just like me. And I'd actually be able to have a Funko Pop of myself. Now, I also have made the joke that the Peter Parker Funko Pop I have is a Funko Pop of me, but that's more not to do with my looks as to my lot in life, I suppose. So I remembered that the other day and said, I'm going to hunt that pop down. No, it's selling for like $1,000 right now.
It's been vaulted.
Well, it's been vaulted and everyone wants it, so.
Right.
And it was an exclusive to begin with.
It was kind of funny because, you've mentioned, as you just said about the James Gunn pop looks like you. And I was trying to figure out what pop most looked like me, and I came to the conclusion the only way to make a pop that resembled myself is to take the James Gunn body and put one of the Duffer Brothers' heads on it.
I mean, the body is accurate enough, I guess, but the James Gunn head, it's my hair, it's my glasses, it's...
Yeah, but, the hoodie, the t-shirt, the jeans, the sneakers, that's me too. But you would have to put one of the Duffer Brother heads on to have the shaggy hair and the unkempt beard for me.
Alrighty then. Moving on.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Okay, I am just going to read exactly what I wrote, and what I am about to say is literally what I wrote for this final news item.
I almost don't want to talk about this, but go ahead.
Controversy arose this week with the release of Batman Damned #1 by Brian Azzarello and Lee Bermejo, the first series in DC Comics' new mature readers' Black Label imprint. I have really no idea how to finish this news item, seriously. And that is what I wrote.
So,
I
God,
gave up because I don't want to talk about it either.
I've been talking about it all week at work. So.
Oh my goodness.
So the long and the short of it is, that was ill phrased. The long and the short of it is that I said it again. That there is nudity in the book. It is a mature reader's book, so I don't have a problem with there being nudity in it. It's, I don't know, have you actually seen it? Because it's not graphic in any way. You barely see anything. It's more of a silhouette than anything else.
But the thing is, it's sticking to the side at an unnatural angle where you're going, I saw it because it's been shown online a lot, and I just go, all I'm thinking is, something wrong there. I mean, we are supposed to notice it.
Oh, I'm not saying, but okay, you say that, and I agree with you, but I've had several people say, like, the girl I work with said she read the book, and then someone mentioned it to her, and she goes, what? I read the book, I didn't notice that. And then she had to go back and look for it. I had a couple other people flip through the book in the store and say, I had to go through that thing like 3-4 times before I noticed it. So...
It's not one panel, though. It's a couple of panels, isn't it?
I've only seen one panel.
I thought it was like 2.
I mean, he's naked in several panels, but there's only one panel that I've seen that I remember seeing where you see the item. I thought, did I have...
We haven't even said what we're talking about.
We're talking about Batman's genitalia.
We're talking about Batman's little Dick Grayson.
As somebody told me at work this week, Bruce Wang.
Bruce Wang.
Okay.
Oh gosh, one of the news articles I saw about this started to, wrote about it and then put underneath a bunch of tweets dealing with the controversy. And of course, we have people complaining that it was too small. Oh my god. Maybe Batman's just a grower and not a shower.
Yeah, I guess it is kind of in a couple panels.
Oh, God.
So, here's where I think the controversy... Here's where I think the controversy is.
Yeah.
Comic fans heard mature readers line... That's me dropping the book on the floor. Heard mature readers line and thought, I'm going to get to see boobs. And then were horrified to be confronted by male nudity instead of female nudity. Now, I don't know. I don't know if it's because I went to art school or something else, but I've never been bothered by nudity of any kind. And I kind of don't get people's hangups about nudity. And I don't understand, like, I've got other books on the shelf. There's a book called Sex Criminals. There's all kinds of nudity and sex in Saga.
Okay.
Is it just because it's Batman?
Two things. First, I think the whole thing is that you have such an iconic character, a character that has been sold to children for generations. So that's going to cause a bit of a sore point with people. I think that's part of what the issue is. And the other thing is, you say you have no problems with nudity. I'd like to point out the true form of the female ghost in The Shining in room 237. Because that was disturbing nudity.
No, I'm not saying there can't be disturbing nudity. But, like, this isn't disturbing nudity.
I thought that was going to get a laugh out of you, but no.
Okay. I don't know what part of it I was supposed to laugh at.
The Shining. Oh, forget it. Let's move on. No.
I don't know. Like, it's not a sex scene. It's not an offensive scene. He happens to be naked in the scene.
No. Okay. According to reports, people are saying, I don't even know if this is true or not, but people are saying that DC is going to edit it out of the digital copies of the comic.
I spoke to someone who said they did buy it digitally and it was censored.
And that it will be censored in future reprints of...
Which has led people to believe that they are actually recalling the book and are going to re-release it censored. That is not the case.
Right, and also in trade paperbacks.
Trade paperbacks make sense. But because of this $6.99 comic is selling upwards of $70 on eBay right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. Oh, God, comic book fans get nuts over stuff like this.
And we had someone come in and buy 10 copies.
We are so close to ending up with another speculator movement again.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're there. The speculators never went away completely, and they're there, and they're always, right below the surface. I can tell you that from working in a comic shop. That it happens.
Yeah. No, I'm just going to say that the thing about this is I have a similar background with you where I'm not offended by any kind of nudity per se. I grew up with... My mom had art book, big coffee table art books of like Michelangelo and Da Vinci and other classics, and that kind of stuff just never bothered me. You can call it the artistic eye or whatnot. It just didn't... Nudity in that regard just did not bother me. Seeing it didn't offend me.
Mm-hmm.
And it is very inconsequential in the context of the book. To the point where you could make the argument that, well, if it's so inconsequential, why does it need to be there? And honestly, it doesn't really need to be there. The only issue I get out of it and how it's presented is that Batman's walking one way, and the way it's pointing is in such a way that it looks unnatural, and it looks like you're supposed to notice it. But as you said, a lot of people looked through it and didn't notice it.
I mean, if it was Catwoman's breasts, would anybody be saying anything right now?
Yeah, but there's not as many lunch boxes with Catwoman.
I mean, if it was Harley Quinn below the waist, would anyone be saying anything?
Honestly, at this point, I'm surprised we haven't seen that in the official DC comic.
Okay, so apparently Sean Gordon Murphy has stated that because DC is kind of retroactively making Batman White Knight into be the first Black Label book, because it's going to have the Black Label mark when it comes out in trade.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently Sean Gordon Murphy has said that he intended for there to be a certain amount of nudity and profanity in the original run of that book, and DC didn't allow him to do so to maintain a teen rating rather than a mature rating. And he actually even shared some sketches of what we would have seen, and a lot of it was Harley Quinn nude. So I don't know if the trade of White Knight is going to have that or not, but they're kind of portraying White Knight as to be like an adult book now, so that'll be interesting if we get that.
Well, they are supposed to be doing a sequel to that, aren't they?
I don't know.
I thought they had announced one half a year ago.
Oh, I don't know. I don't remember that. My relationship with that book is sort of the art is gorgeous, and after 2 issues, I was like, I don't care for this as a story, and I bought the rest of them, but I didn't read any of them.
Yeah. Getting back to Batman and the issue of his nudity, I think you're really, I think it boils down to two things. As I said, you're dealing with a character that for generations has been sold as something appropriate for kids, so people are going to freak out over that. There has always been kind of an element of the adult for a character, like, say, if you were to do a Punisher comic where the Punisher was naked, or Wolverine. Whereas Batman, for the longest time, Batman was seen as the quintessential comic book for kids. Comics are childish character because they were silly and they were goofy and they were funny, and that, the whole Dick Sprang stuff. God. In the 50s, then the whole Adam West Batman in the 60s. Yeah, that kind of stigma has basically stuck with Batman for a longest time. I think that part of it is that. The other issue is that in the U.S., I don't. Honestly, I don't know how much it is in Canada. I don't think it's as much of a problem. But especially in the U.S., there is a huge problem with male nudity.
Oh, no, I understand that.
Female nudity is okay. You can... We've talked in the past how you could have... It used to be that you could have female nudity in a PG movie, 35 years ago. Male nudity was automatic R or X rating, depending on if it was butt or full frontal. So I think it's just the combination of the two is just kind of blew people's brains. Yeah. This whole story is just ridiculous.
Yeah. I don't know. I think human beings are really weird, is what I'm gonna say.
Oh, no argument there. Yeah, this whole thing's just been blown out of proportion. And with that, I think we're going to wrap up the news of the week. Is there anything you want to say about our sponsor, Galactic Rigs?
We got the Ravnica pre-release is next week for Magic, Saturday and Sunday. We are still taking orders for the Galactic Regs Walking Dead cover, if you're looking for that. Just want to point out, that is not out yet. It is out the 13th of October. So I've had several people come in and look for it and say, oh, you must have sold out of it already. It's like, no, this is a pre-order situation. Also, we hope to be getting the shirts in soon. So if you pre-ordered a shirt, hopefully they'll be in soon. It does take a little time to get them printed. And other than that, we've got business as usual. Come see us.
Yeah, we really do. We need to make a new ad.
Well, the store is a little bit in flux right now, and I don't want to make an ad that's going to be outdated right away.
Right.
That's why I haven't done so.
We could probably try to write something that's maybe a little bit neutral, maybe? I don't know.
Because, our old ad we used to play mentioned us buying DVDs and whatnot, and we don't do that anymore, so that was part of the reason I stopped running it.
Yeah, but, as I said, there's ways to get around that. Just do something, as I said, neutral. But if we got nothing else to say about Galactic Rigs, then I guess it's time to move on to the main topic of the week. And our main topic this week, what is it, Matt?
It is Invincible, Volume 4, Head of the Class.
Hey, Matt, did you get around to reading this?
I did. What, are you trying to imply that I would not read a book that we're going to cover on a podcast?
I almost didn't make it. I had to cram the entire trade paperback in 90 minutes before we started recording. It's been one heck of a week.
I can probably read this in 90 minutes. I had read the first 2 or 3 issues earlier in the week, and I read the remaining 4 in about 40 minutes or an hour earlier today.
The problem is neglected to read it because I kept putting it off because of everything else that's been going on, and then when I started to read it, and I was trying to do the plot synopsis for each chapter while reading it, and I read the first issue, then I wrote out the plot synopsis, and then I started reading the second one, and then finished that, and went, oh, I'm never going to get through this if I keep doing it this way. So I actually don't have a complete plot outline for the volume. So we are going to break from how we've done the Invincible trade paperback collection volumes review episodes in the past, and this one we are going to basically have me flip through the book, describe the events of each chapter, and then we're going to discuss that issue. And then at the end of all this, we're going to wrap it up with our rating and final thoughts on the volume. Sound good to you?
Hey, it's your host week, man. You do what you need to do.
Yeah, and if that means half-assing it, that's what we're doing.
I have notes, so we're gonna have stuff to talk about.
I started to write notes, but then I stopped just to try to, because the priority became get through the book.
I feel like
I haven't read this in like almost 10 years.
I feel like when I read it about a year and a half ago. I feel like when I don't have to write a plot synopsis, I take more detailed notes.
Yeah, it's probably the same for me.
All right, so there's 7 issues in this trade, and let's get started.
All right, so Chapter 1 of Invincible Volume 4, Head of the Class. Well, we have alien invasion, or I should say interdimensional being invasion, by the Flaxons attacking the new Guardians of the Globe, along with Adam Eve and Invincible. The Guardians are struggling against the invasion until they realize that the reason why the Flaxons are so much more successful this time around is that they are wearing bracelets that allow them to maintain their vigor in this universe because of... at this point I'm about to start rambling. Because of the time difference between their universe and ours. They destroyed the bracelets of the leader and several of the Flaxons, so they start to immediately age at an accelerated rate. So the Flaxons flee back to their dimension.
Yes, you may remember the previous time the Flaxons appeared, they started to age very quickly in our world, and then Omni-Man... almost immediately, and then Omni-Man was trapped in their world, he said, for centuries. But he was gone like a week and a half.
Centuries in that dimension, a week and a half for the Invincible universe.
Right.
Okay, so the invasion over, the Guardians break up for the day, and we see Invincible, as night falls, heads home, and he is confronted by Immortal, who tells him that he doesn't trust him, and he's going to be paying attention to see that whether or not Invincible is going to switch to the villain side like his father, and if he does, he will take him out.
The Immortal really doesn't like anybody.
The funny thing is, it's supposed to be Abraham Lincoln. I thought Abraham Lincoln was supposed to be a nice guy.
It's not supposed to be Abraham Lincoln. It is Abraham Lincoln. So.
Yeah, I just... Abraham Lincoln's a jerk in this. So Invincible goes into his bedroom and he finds Cecil Stedman, the leader of the... I can't even remember the name of the organization.
I don't think they ever actually name the organization that Stedman works for. He works for a government organization that's based out of the Pentagon, but is never explicitly stated to be a United States organization.
That's true. So, yeah, he represents not S.H.I.E.L.D.
Exactly.
It's just kind of funny, 17-year-old boy, or I think at this point he actually says he's 18 in this volume.
He's close to high school graduation, so...
Right.
Oh yeah, he had his birthday last trade, if you remember.
That's right. But, yeah, a little weird. Walk in your bedroom and find a middle-aged man standing there.
Yeah, that's not something you want to have happen.
So, Cecil tells him that someone stole the audio recording that they had of the entire Invincible Omni-Man fight in the last volume, in which certain details came out. Nothing that would reveal Mark's secret identity as Invincible, but stuff that was of personal nature that Cecil is concerned would affect Debbie if she was to see or hear about it. Cecil then leaves, and Mark goes down. There's a knock at the door, and it is Art, the superhero tailor, who is there to visit to see Debbie, to commiserate and talk with her. Mark and Art find Debbie tearfully watching the news, which is repeating in loop the Omni-Man revealing on the tape recording that that Debbie meant nothing to him, and the Earth and humans mean nothing to him.
I wrote that we get both Metropolis and the Fantastic Four mentioned within a page of each other.
Yeah, that was kind of surprising, because usually they're pretty good with avoiding any references to Marvel or DC. Usually, if they're going to do anything like that, we're going to get, talk about like comics or whatever's fictional entertainment in that world. It's going to be something like Science Dog.
Right.
So that was kind of a bit interesting.
Yeah, because Cecil says that part of hiding Mark's secret identity is that he doesn't have a metropolis that he lives in. Mm-hmm. And he could just be reusing the term in the general sense, but he words it like Superman and Metropolis. And then Art mentions that he redid Shrinking Ray's costume?
Yes.
Because his original costume was just a Fantastic Four costume with different colors, and he felt bad about that.
Okay, so Art sits with Debbie to talk with her and reveals that he brought booze, and Mark heads back to his bedroom. We then cut to the next day with Mark arriving at school and finding out that there is a fight in the hall between Derek, who was the guy who survived being turned into a cyborg in the first volume.
Right.
Roughing up a bunch of the guys from was it the football team or basketball team? I can't figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's generic local bullies. They didn't really get too specific as to what team they were from.
Well, I'm just wondering, because half the guys are wearing team... Okay, they're all wearing team colors for presumably the school, but half of them are wearing basketball shorts, the other half are wearing football jerseys. And one guy looks like he's actually wearing a soccer shirt, so...
Yeah, I'm not sure.
The thing is, wasn't Derek actually a member of the sports team in the first volume?
He might have been. I don't really recall that.
It's kind of interesting to me that this happens and we don't really know what the setup is, and this seems like it would be an interesting story in its own, them dealing with Derek's recovery and being ostracized by the people who used to be his teammates, but the fight gets broken up and not mentioned again after this. The principal, Principal Winslow, tells Mark that he wants to see him in his office. Before that happens, Mark and his friend Chuck run into William and Eve, in which they decide, the guys say that they're going to meet together after school at the Burger Mart and hang out. Eve excuses herself, and William reveals that he's dating Eve and brags to Mark that, quote, "I've got you and your dad to thank for it."
I wrote, William does not understand human interaction.
I wrote, William equals ass.
I think the two things mean the same thing.
At this point, I really don't like William. He's such a jerk.
Yeah, and he doesn't get represented well in this trade.
He doesn't get represented well in any of the previous trades.
No, it's maybe it's a little bit of a spoiler, but it's a long ways off before we get to like William, I think. It does happen.
I'm not even sure if I ever got to that point. Because,
No, I don't think you did.
9 volumes.
I think I'm thinking like in between 15 and 20 on the volumes.
Oh, okay, so Kirkman was playing the long ball.
Oh yeah. Although I will say I won't reveal what we find out and what ends up happening with William, but when I hit it the first time through, I thought this is kind of out of left field, and now I'm like rereading this and going, oh my God, Kirkman set it up way back here. It is not out of left field at all. So when we get there, we'll discuss that.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing about William is he's a jerk and he's callous, but it never really seems intentional.
No, that's why I said he doesn't understand human interaction.
Well, but yeah, it's that he doesn't think before he speaks.
Yeah, he's not trying to be a jerk.
So Mark storms off and runs almost lip first into Amber, his girlfriend, who I forgot we had seen her at this point.
She hasn't
been introduced.
Oh, yeah, she was introduced a while back.
I kept thinking it was later, but yeah. So Amber wants to get together and see him, but Mark kind of blows her off, goes to the principal's office where he is told that he's fallen behind because he missed 3 weeks officially because he was with his mother out of town dealing with his father's funeral arrangements. Really, he was in recovery because of the battle with Omni-Man, and he was in a coma for 2 weeks. But the principal tells him that they want him to succeed. Mark has already been accepted into university, so he's saying he ends with, "You've got nothing to worry about there. Here, Mark." We then cut to later where Mark arrives at Burger Mart to hang out with William and Chuck, and Mark is confronted by the manager of Burger Mart, his former boss, who starts berating Mark, and William jumps up to his defense, screaming at the manager.
I wrote, "At least William stands up for Mark."
I wrote that it was a weird confrontation that didn't really mean anything or make sense. It just didn't lead anywhere.
Well, it would have been better, and I think this is in character, but it would have been better if William had said, "Hey, don't you know his dad just died?" Instead of just saying, "Hey, leave the guy alone. He's having a hard time," or whatever. Whatever he said. It was so generic what he said.
Right, he says, "Hey, look, jerkface, he's not in the mood for this. Why don't you just leave him alone? That's it."
Right. I mean,
I do like the manager starts, talking tough, but ends with, "Did you just call me jerkface?"
Right, yeah, that was good. Yeah, it would have been better if William would have actually explained the situation, and then the manager probably would have shown some human compassion and not been so upset about the situation. But of course, William does not understand human interaction.
No, he doesn't. Yeah, I just thought this scene was really weird and didn't really add anything. And I would have been fine if it led somewhere, but it really didn't. Just abruptly ended. I think it was just another example to show how down and how everything seems to be conspiring against Mark.
Right, and it's mentioned later as well, so.
We then cut to the base of the new Guardians of the Globe, where Robot is walking and talking with Donald. I forgot his name for a moment. Donald reveals that the team is struggling and not their response time. Okay, here's a problem I have with this. Donald reveals that his response time is half of what the original Guardians was. Wouldn't it have been have been bad? Because half to me implies that the response time is... Yeah,
I mean, what he meant to say was it was half as good.
Right. The wording's just a little odd here.
Right.
But basically, he informs him that Robot is essentially on notice, and that they are making some adjustments to the team. They feel that there's not enough, so they are adding Bulletproof as a member, and the Immortal as a advisor to Robot. And the team will be moved into the original Guardians of the Globe base.
Yeah, so we get Bulletproof, and is this the first time we're seeing? No, he was at the He was at the tryouts.
Yes, he was.
So, I think we've mentioned before, the costume that he's wearing was originally intended to be the Invincible costume before they redesigned it. And within the storyline, we see that costume among the things that Art shows to Mark when he's first picking out his costume. So
I think the decision for that with regards to Robert Kirkman and Corey Walker was that they decided that the costume didn't have an iconic enough look. It was kind of generic. I mean, it's kind of snazzy looking, but it is pretty generic. There's nothing really that really stands out about it. Whereas for Invincible, he's got a giant eye.
Right.
We then cut back to Mark returning home that evening and discovering his mother collapsed and sobbing on the kitchen floor. She said that she was making dinner, realized that she was making dinner for 3, and she just broke down. Mark holds her as she asks him, why did you have to fight him? Why did you have to drive him away? Blaming Mark for Nolan, Omni-Man, leaving. And that is the end of Chapter 1 of this volume.
I wrote Debbie's Downward Spiral. We're going to get this continuously through this volume. She's just not handling everything that happened well. Not that I don't know, I don't know how you're supposed to handle something like this, but she's not handling it well, and she's drinking a lot, and she's having breakdowns a lot.
I was the first time I read this, I was surprised at how much she ended up wallowing in that. I've seen people go through stuff like this, so I know it's possible. I know what happens. You do not expect something like this out of a lighthearted superhero comic. This is one of the examples of how this book, the Invincible series, started to get much more issue related, although without really hitting you over the head with it.
Right.
But it started to actually, most of the time, the action and the events in the comics tend to be very ridiculous and not realistic at all, but then you end up with something like this which is just a lot of emotional turmoil, and it's kind of gritty's not the right word.
No, it's that the Invincible universe is a strange mix of real life trauma, sensibilities, problems, but still has sort of the over the top, almost Silver Age things we expect from superhero comics. And it will frequently switch from superheroes are these fun over-the-top things to, oh my god, the amount of power that they're wielding can cause this massive damage, and people don't just get over that, in a day.
Right. There are repercussions.
Right.
Moving on to Chapter 2, we open with the Guardians base, where Robot is working on some equipment, and the only other member in the room is Monster Girl, who's getting ready to leave. Robot confronts her, saying that he's received complaints from Bulletproof about Monster Girl hitting on him because her apparent physical age makes other people uncomfortable, and Robot asks her not to hit on people. We have Monster Girl becomes angry and says that she points out that she's a 29-year-old woman who has an adult woman's feelings, emotions, and urges, and that it's her powers turning into a monster, which every time she does so causes her to physically de-age. So Robot takes a skin sample from her to study her DNA to see if he can find a way to counter the effects, and he asks her to refrain from hitting on the teammates. She agrees, and she leaves.
This is the first real anything we've gotten from Monster Girl. She's been around for a little bit. She's going to become very important. I
think at this point we had seen her smoking. We'd seen her making lewd comments about.
We understood that she was older than she actually
really
was.
Weird stuff because she looks like a little girl.
Right.
While
but
doing all this,
we never really got the actual explanation.
I'm sorry.
I said we never got the actual explanation until now.
Matt?
Yeah. Derek appears to not be able to hear me. Let's see what's going on.
And I can hear you again.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, for the last minute, I haven't heard anything, and my Skype has been flashing. Poor network connection.
Yeah, I understand. No, I said this is the first real explanation that we've gotten of her situation, although it's been alluded to previous to this.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that. But yeah, it's really the first time that we've actually had everything spelled out. We do get the point about how to go in with the previous issue, the emotional effect it has on her, and actually get a little bit more character stuff between her and Robot. It doesn't really, we don't see it yet, but we have. This is essentially the starting point for what's going to develop between these two characters in the future.
Which is going to end up being very important to the book.
We then cut to morning, where Mark is coming down for breakfast with his book bag before school. It's the day after the last issue, and Debbie apologizes to Mark and tells her that she had been drinking and she did not mean what she had said. She realizes that Nolan had betrayed her and Mark and everyone, and that they will together get through this. Mark then leaves to go to school. He arrives at school. Amber greets him. She's talking to him when his beeper goes off, and he runs off, where Amber says, what's he need a beeper for?
Yeah, this is going to start sort of a running joke with him and Amber that is going to continue through this trade and into the next.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I remember that was, reading this the first time years ago, I thought that was, whenever she says what her suspicions are, I thought it was hilarious. But the thing is, we'll get to it because it's later in this volume, but really, based on everything she's observed and she knows, it makes complete sense.
I'm just surprised they still had beepers in 2004.
I am surprised too. We cut to outside of the Pentagon, where Invincible arrives to see Cecil and a couple of other men waiting. A portal opens, not portable, but a couple of fish, or I guess a few fishmen materialize, and Cecil reveals to Invincible that they are handing him over to the Atlanteans because of the actions of Omni-Man killing their king, Aquarius, when he murdered the Guardians of the Globe, means that with Omni-Man off-world having fled the Earth, Invincible as his son and next of kin has to answer for his crimes, and that means, according to the law of the Atlanteans, that he has to marry the wife or the widow of Aquarius, the king of Atlantis.
I wrote, they never mention marrying fishwives or fish widows in superhero movies.
Well, they don't.
This is where Kirkman's great, where it's like, you think he's going to be taken and put on trial, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the setup. The setup is, we want justice for our king. But it's, the queen wants a mate, and it's got to be the guy who killed her husband. Oh, he's not available? I'll take his son.
Yeah, you think it's going to be an execution type thing. We do have Cecil assures Invincible that they have lawyers going over or a legal team looking for loopholes, and that they're going to get him out of it. Invincible goes off with them.
I liked Cecil saying, we'd just fight them, but they got a bunch of natural resources that we need, so we want to stay on good terms with them.
Yeah, and they control all of the Earth's waters. I think at that point he's basically admitting that they probably would lose if they attacked them. It's revealed that at this point it's believed that we just discussed it, but at this point Invincible does not know why he's being taken. I think he assumes he's being taken for trial. He does not realize that it's a marriage. We then cut to him in the ship with the Atlanteans arriving and seeing the kingdom before him. We then cut to, I think it's Chicago, where Debbie is in a publisher's office talking with a... I'm actually not really sure what her position is.
She's some sort of a legal aid.
Right, for the publishing office. Signing over so that all of Nolan, who is at this point legally dead, all of his royalties from his published novels will be going to Debbie. The publisher aide is Claire, and she is revealed she is the wife of Super Patriot, one of Eric Larson's comic book characters.
Yeah, much of Eric Larson's Savage Dragon series is set in Chicago. This gets us... Oh, I think we've had it come up before, but this gets us into a weird place where Invincible seems to take place on a shared Earth with the rest of the Image comic characters. However, that can't actually be the case because there are several things that are worldwide events that happen in Invincible that do not affect those other books. However, Savage Dragon, Spawn, Super Patriot, Capes all pop up in Invincible from time to time.
Well, the thing is, okay, Capes, isn't that actually one of the Kirkman's creations?
I think so.
The thing with the Larson characters appearing, I just kind of ended up taking it as the Larson characters, Savage Dragon and that, basically, and the stuff that Larson publishes himself, writes and draws, that is one universe, and this is just, those characters happen to exist in a parallel Invincible universe. At least that's kind of the way I kind of rationalized it.
Well, yeah, because, again, Spawn appears, I won't say regularly, but he does appear in Invincible, and those two worlds seem to be completely unreconcilable, so this must be the Invincible Earth version of Spawn.
Right, so I kind of take it as being the Invincible Earth version of Super Patriot, not the official version. We then cut back to Atlantis, where Mark, it's revealed that the whole plot of the wedding, and he's under the impression that it will be days or weeks before it happens, but then he's told that the ceremony is that day. We cut back to Chicago, where Debbie talks to Claire and makes a date to talk with her after she finishes her next meeting at the coffee shop in the building to talk to her about her husband. We cut back to Atlantis as Mark is being fitted for his wedding dress, because of course he is. And the aide who is helping him becomes upset and leaves, and Mark realizes that. Actually, I guess he doesn't realize that at that point. But Cecil communicates with him and reveals that he didn't realize that Invincible was still in Atlantis. Not really on the ball there, is he?
No, he kind of makes the comment of, "Oh, I thought they would have gotten you out of that by now."
Thing is, I don't think a lot of time had really passed.
It really hadn't. It's a little odd the way it's written.
So basically, Invincible's going to end up probably having to go through with the wedding for now because he doesn't know when he's going to get out of there. We cut back to, I don't know where the heck it is, where we see it's the Mauler twins, right?
Yeah.
We have the Mauler twins, and they're confronted by Immortal, and that's one page. Cut back to Debbie and Claire sitting outside having coffee, and Debbie revealing that she's the wife of Omni-Man, and they have a discussion about their marriages as superheroes. And we then flip back to Mark in Atlantis and discovering that the royal vizier is actually in love with the queen, and Mark says that he doesn't want to marry the queen, but the vizier does, so he's going to help him make a plan that will help both of them. We then get the wedding ceremony where Mark is supposed to defeat a underdweller, a deep sea creature, and part of the ceremony is defeat the creature to show his strength and bravery to defend the queen, his mate, and then they will mate in the middle of the arena in front of the entire, well, I guess the nation. But Mark pretends to be scared and fakes the vizier attacking and defeating the creature, knocking it out. The vizier and the queen then begin to make love as Invincible leaves in time to pick up Debbie on the roof from her hangout with Claire.
I wrote that they're really having a serious look at the trauma caused by superheroes here. This whole discussion between Claire and Debbie, and and again, Kirkman doesn't beat you over the head with it. We're having good fun with this whole jokey Atlantean situation here, where Mark is put in a dress and told that he has to mate with the Atlantean queen in front of the entire nation. So.
Yeah, that's one of the good things about this, is that all the melodrama is not constant. We get really great breaks with the goofy stuff. We then end the issue with one page with Eve and William hanging out in one of their bedrooms. I have no idea which one it is. And William only then realizing that Eve is a superhero and that she has the ability to fly, and we then have a hard cut to Eve flying up away from the house with William in her arms, as Eve says, "This is so gay."
Because that's going to keep happening.
Yeah, it's a little awkward now, but yeah, it happens a lot. Chapter 3, which is really, really short. I think this is part of a Free Comic Book Day issue. Because it's like...
it's a story from the Image Comics Summer Special, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so this one's a very short one. We cut to the Pentagon. We have Cecil standing in front of a bunch of keyboards, shouting "Go!" Invincible attacks a being called Furnace, knocks him to the ground, destroys his robotic suit, and then flies off, makes it back to school, where he gets called into the office by the principal, who chastises him for being late, missing classes, ditching class, and not completing his homework, and that says, "Ever since your dad died in that car crash, we don't know what to do with you." We then get a montage of Mark thinking about all of, with different panels of images from replicated from the battle with Omni-Man in the last volume. Mark says he's dealing with it, and he leaves, runs into Amber. He blows off Amber, says, "I'll see you tomorrow." Heads home. Him and Debbie are sitting down for dinner, and Debbie says to Mark, "You'll be fine, we'll get through this. If I can, you can." Mark says, "I'm not sure, Mom. I'm just not sure." And that is the end. So, yeah, most of this is just a really, really quick battle, and then a lot of angsty drama.
It's basically, and again, I apply the, the real serious look at superhero trauma, but this is basically the introduction of Furnace, and then sort of, I should say the origin of Furnace, but it's I guess it's more of an introduction, and then sort of a mini introduction of the Invincible comic, in case you picked this up and hadn't previously read it, you know.
Yeah, it kind of, okay, it's a short 8-page bit. Putting it in the middle of this volume, it feels like feet spinning, but I understand that this would have been used in the summer special for the Free Comic Book Day as a way to kind of entice or familiarize people who haven't been reading the comic with what's going on at this moment. So I get that. It just, I don't know, it kind of sticks out a little bit like a sore thumb when it's collected.
A little bit, but I mean, it's necessary.
It's not something,
so
yeah, it's not really bad. It furthers the story of how he's struggling, how his work, school life is deteriorating. It puts another hurdle into the relationship with Amber. Really, the only thing that's really kind of odd about this is Debbie seems normal and fine, which is really jarring considering what we've been seeing of her the last 2 issues.
I mean, it's definitely a moment where Mark's more down about things than she is.
Chapter 4. We open with, looks like New York's Times Square, and we have Invincibles floating in the air while also broadcasting from the big television screen, saying, "Resist and die. Invincible and Omni-Man have taken over the world, and anyone who offers any kind of resistance will be brutally exterminated and killed immediately." We see destruction and chaos and fires burning everywhere. In the middle of this, we have a man running down a bunch of alleys. He hides in a old box, and it's revealed that there is a trapdoor. Lowers him down into a room with Robot and the Immortal. The man is Angstrom Lang. It's Lang, right?
No, not at all.
It's
Angstrom Levy.
Levy, thank you.
I wrote, "Hello, Angstrom Levy," because I had forgotten that it was this far into the book that we first meet him. But I don't want to give too much away about who he is, but he is going to be a very important character.
Extremely important character. Angstrom is working with Immortal and Robot as part of resistance against Omni-Man and Invincible. He is a genius, Robot says, possesses intellect nearly as substantial as my own. Immortal does not like Angstrom. He thinks he's not doing anything to pull his weight. That's because Abraham Lincoln is a jerk in this. When all of a sudden, Omni-Man and Invincible crash through the ceiling, revealing that they have been following Angstrom from the air. Omni-Man quickly squishes Immortal's head so that it explodes everywhere, which is horrifically disgusting, shockingly. And Invincible rips apart Robot. But before they can attack Angstrom, a portal opens in the wall, and Angstrom appears, pulling Angstrom into it.
And yes, he said that right.
I do like the little beat, because we got one panel with Invincible and Omni-Man both looking surprised. What in the world was that? That's a new... And Omni-Man says, "That's a new one to me."
They both like they just came in and murdered Robot and Immortal, and they're just like so like it turns into a comic moment for their response to this happening.
Omni-Man is literally covered in the brains and blood of the Immortal, and I just like the expression of surprise on his face. So, it just furthers Kirkman's ability to do something horrific and funny at the same time.
Right. So what's happening here is that Angstrom Levy from the main Earth, we'll say, that where the main stories we're reading are from, has the ability to dimension hop, and he basically just rescued one of his counterparts from an Earth where apparently Invincible didn't try to stop Omni-Man and helped him take over.
Right. So continuing on, the two Angstroms step outside and find out that there's an alien invasion. They run for cover. The main universe Angstrom, who is the one who rescued the other Angstrom, it's confusing really quickly, thinks that they may have jumped to a different Earth, but then he realizes he's in his own dimension, he's on his own Earth.
And I'm completely unclear as to how he realizes that for sure that he's on the right Earth.
Yeah, I don't get it either. He just looks at the newspaper article on a newspaper vending machine
that says that there's an alien invasion going on, and somehow that tells him that he's on the right universe, even though he's surprised by the alien invasion.
So they run off, and we cut to a 2-page spread with the new Guardians of the Globe and Invincible fighting aliens, and fighting more aliens, and fighting more aliens. All of a sudden, Eve points up in the sky. There is something that appears to be a comet, or maybe a person, and all of a sudden, the aliens start to depart. And the aliens leave, and we have no idea what happened.
Now, I can't give a spoiler here because I don't remember if this gets explained. But the The shading on the comet makes it look like it's somebody flying really fast.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but yeah, I don't remember if this gets explained, if these guys ever get properly introduced or anything like that, but they just see this thing and they bug out.
Yeah, strange. Okay, I'm gonna get into this whenever we do the final rating at the end of this, but this is one of the issues where I kind of had a problem with it, because I kept wondering if I was reading part of a massive crossover that Image did that I wasn't aware of, but I don't think so.
No, that is not the case.
Because I have no idea what's going on with this, and Kirkman does have a habit of, we flip to a page and we're just thrown into the action, and that's kind of fine. Usually you're able to acclimate yourself and kind of get a handle of what's going on, but this just seems like it's just an invasion for the sake of an invasion, and we get some ramifications with Mark's personal life as a result of this, which is fine, but it never really makes sense, because it's an invasion and the invaders just leave and it's never explained. We don't know why they came, we don't know why they leave, they just did. Really, the whole thing just seems just to make it so that Mark can catch up on his schoolwork and go to summer school. And I don't get it. The next thing we see is Cecil walking into the White Room as Donald is getting patched up. He's covered in bandages. They have a conversation about the invasion, and Cecil is angry about the Guardians, that the new team is a joke, and that it just cements his opinion that Robot is failing as a leader. We cut back to the Grayson home. Mark and Debbie are having a conversation. We see a big crater outside in their front yard. Mark tells her that he's going to school to see his friends and to see what the damage is to school as a result of the invasion. We cut to the school. There are a bunch of ruins and burn marks and
my first one.
Destruction at the school. The friends are all hanging out. We get a bit of a conversation between Mark and Amber, with Mark revealing some aspects of why that he's been blowing off Amber, because he's been concerned he doesn't know how to deal with what happened with his father, which, as far as she knows, his father just died in a car crash, and he's unsure how to talk about it. So Amber apologizes to him. We cut back to the Guardians headquarters, and Cecil fires Robot and says he would prefer that Robot stay on the team because his intelligence is still an asset, even though he believes he's failed as a leader. Robot agrees to stay on the team for now. There's then a cut to the Pentagon, where I just forgot the name of the character, the detective guy. I want to say Damien Darkblood.
Yeah, the demon detective.
Right, Damien Darkblood, the demon detective, shows up, asks to see Cecil. The secretary says he's out right now. Can I give him a message? And he says, Damien Darkblood reveals, tell him I have leads on the Guardians of the Globe murder case. I'm close to finding out who did it. And the secretary says, huh? Everyone knows Omni-Man did it. It's over and done with. You haven't been watching the news, have you? And then she laughs as he leaves.
And I don't remember if this ever gets paid off.
Or is that the payoff? It was just weird, because it's like they were building up this character during the investigation, then he kind of disappeared, then all of a sudden he comes back just for this one page, and then, is that it? Do we ever see him again?
Well, I will tell you that this is the last time we see him in Invincible until issue 100. This is issue 16 we're currently talking about.
That's a long...
Now, he makes a couple of appearances in Astounding Wolfman, and he makes at least one appearance in Guarding the Globe. But yes, this is the last time we see him. So it's almost like they forgot that they had him investigating and then remembered, and they just wanted to tie up the loose end.
So they went, well, we'll just make a joke.
Make a joke out of it.
Yeah, I can see that happening. Next thing we see, Adam, Eve, and Invincible are cleaning up some of the wreckage, trying to clear paths so that construction teams can come in to clear out rubble and debris. They find a guy who apparently seems to be looting. This is Titan, guy who can grow a protective shell over his body. He has super strength and invulnerability while inside his shell.
Stupid image. Wikipedia keeps giving me video pop-ups.
Oh, that sucks.
I was trying to see if this alien army was ever expounded upon, and literally for the issue, they're listed as unnamed alien army, and there's no link on their name, so...
It seems like they exist solely to destroy Mark's school.
It seems like, yes, it's that. This is the thought that I had when I was reading it. It's solely to get Mark a reprieve from all his schoolwork by causing school to be delayed by 5 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, Mark punches Titan, and Titan agrees to help him and Eve clear debris. We then cut to the two Angstroms as they reach the main Invincible world, Angstrom's lab, and they walk inside, and Angstrom introduces Angstrom to hundreds of Angstroms.
And I wrote, Cowboy Angstrom is the best.
I like his goatee. Cowboy. It would have been funny if they gave some of them like really out there outfits.
I think they do as the series goes on, because we see hundreds, I want to say hundreds of Angstrom Levies as the series goes on.
Yeah, at this point, it just looks like a bunch of regular dudes. It would have been funny because, you know, can you imagine if they did that with on the Flash TV show with all the Wells?
Oh yeah, exactly. And you know, they eventually do. I guess this is a minor spoiler, but I'm gonna say it anyway. They eventually do lots of other versions of Invincible from other realities in the course of this Angstrom storyline, and they're like dramatically different looking. But here, all the Angstroms are basically an African American guy who's slightly balding, who usually has a goatee, and has various different hairstyles that are, for the most part, very similar.
Yeah, there's one guy who's got a bit of an afro, and that's about it.
Right, and the one guy's kind of like more shaved on the back of his head and the sides of his head, whereas most of them have it down, you know, have their hair down along the side of their head. But yeah, basically they're the same guy. Right,
except one wears a cowboy hat.
Yeah, and even he seems to have the same hair.
And that is the end of chapter 4. Chapter 5. Mark and Amber leave the movies. They have a discussion about the movie. Amber liked it. Mark liked it. Amber did not. They go to a restaurant. They leave the restaurant. They get to Mark's place. They walk into the house, but Mark sees that Debbie is passed out drunk on the couch with empty bottles of alcohol. He then takes Amber to the backyard where they sit on some deck chairs and briefly kiss before Amber leaves to go home. Cut back to the Mauler twins. I can't believe I still remember their name. I thought I forgot their name.
I'm amazed you remember anybody's name.
I'm amazed I remember my own.
So I just looked up Angstrom, just not Angstrom Levy. I looked up Angstrom just to see where the name came from. And an angstrom is a unit of length that is approximately 1/10 billionth of a meter, or 0.1 nanometers. The symbol is this weird A symbol, and the letter in the Swedish alphabet, apparently named for physicist Anders Jonas Angstrom. I looked this up because I always wondered where they got that name from.
I knew it had to do with a scientist and something to do with science and measurement, but I couldn't remember exactly what it was. Because I had heard the term before I started reading Invincible 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. But I can never remember what it was. Anyways, we have the Mauler twins. They are in a high-tech super villain cell. I noticed that right next to them in the cell is, I believe that's Black Samson's butler?
Yes.
Couldn't they just put him in a regular prison? Or is he there because he was a...
I mean,
I don't know.
He had a superpowered offense. He was wearing a power suit and he attacked the Guardians of the Globe, so...
Yeah, but without that, he's just a regular old middle-aged man.
Yeah, and without his flight suit, Falcon is just a regular military guy, but they still put him on the raft in Civil War, so...
I like that we also have the leader of the, I can't remember the name of the group.
The Lizard League.
Guys.
Yeah, King Lizard's there.
King Lizard. Anyways, Angstrom pops out of a portal in the wall, tells the Mauler twins to come with him, and if they want to get out, they do. He has taken them into a parallel universe, and he reveals to them that he has the ability to travel across dimensions, but he can't cross from within his own dimension. He has to cross to another dimension, and then from that dimension find a portal to come back to another place. And he has no control or information on what he sees in other dimensions. He brings the Mauler twins back to the main universe and his van, and they drive back to his lab.
Now this is the level of detail we get from artists like Ryan Ottley. The license plate of the van is the number 4 and skins. You would think possibly an obscene joke. Mm-hmm. But if you further investigate the panel, you will notice that there is a Redskins bumper sticker. So the person is a fan of the Redskins. They are for the skins. Hence the license plate, 4 skins. I like how Otley sneaks in a dirty joke and then explains it away all in one panel.
Well, sneaks in a dirty joke, but then puts in another detail that implies that maybe it's not so dirty.
Right.
Probably is. Well, the thing with his art that I find is that you get panels which have incredible amount of detail, and then you get other pages where it's just like there's like almost no background detail.
Yeah, and that's pretty much continued into his Spider-Man run, although I would say he puts more detail in the backgrounds as the series goes on here and into like what he's doing on Spider-Man now is very reminiscent of the last 20-30 issues of Invincible. But yeah, he's still growing as an artist for sure at this point, but we do have a lot of like panels, and on like just on this 2-page spread that I'm looking at, we get a lot of panels where it's just like the character, their word balloons, and maybe an effect behind them, and then like a gradient color and or some clouds. You know, whereas we also get them standing in the cityscape where everything's destroyed.
Next thing we see is back at the high school. The students have returned after their 5-week break while the school had repairs, and Mark's teacher reveals that they are going to watch a movie instead of actually doing any real work.
They somehow managed to watch Gladiator in an hour class.
Yeah, that's pretty shocking in itself. So Mark and Amber are leaving their class. They run into William and Eve. We get a couple of character beat where William is acting goofy and Eve looks mortified.
William is a child.
Pretty much.
We get to watch movies. This is great.
Mark returns home, has a conversation with Debbie over dinner, and he gets his beeper goes off. He gets up to leave, but before he does, he throws out some trash and finds a bunch of liquor bottles in the trash can. Debbie gets angry that Mark is giving her a look of disapproval, saying that Art was over the night before, they were talking and drinking, and it's not illegal, and that she's the parent, and Mark's not allowed to look at her that way. Mark kisses her on the cheek and leaves. He arrives downtown to stop where there's a superhero battle between Capes and a scientist who has mutated into a giant hulking creature. Mark subdues the scientist by flying him out into outer space, suffocating him. It then brings him back down to the ground where he is chained up and put in restraints. Mark has a conversation with Capes where they say that he could probably get a job working with them, make some money, regular paycheck. The giant hulking guy gets up again, but he's knocked unconscious by one of the Cape members who has a giant hammer. We then get some color with Mark hanging out with the different Cape heroes.
I think the guy with the hammer is named Son of Thor.
I remember seeing him before in other stuff. I think I actually had an issue of Capes at one point, but technically like a long time ago, so I don't really remember. We then cut to the graduation, the principal, Wilson, reveals that he is stepping down as principal of the high school and moving on. They then start handing out all the diplomas. William and Amber notice that Mark has a black eye, which he sustained from fighting the scientists in the previous page, and he says that he got mugged. We then have Mark's name announced. He goes up, he gets his diploma. It's
Marcus Sebastian Grayson.
Sebastian?
Yeah, William's Sebastian.
Yeah, William Francis Clockwell. I don't think William should be throwing stones. Last page of the issue is all the students throwing their caps up in the air, and Marx flies off into space. As Mark looks on with disappointment and says, "Oh crap." Chapter 6. We open with Mark holding up the roof of a building while a panicked woman and child are cowering. Mark tells them they quickly gather some things, toys, family photos, whatever. Just be quick about it. We then get a hard cut to Burger Mart, where Amber is sitting talking with William and Eve. She reveals her conclusion that Mark's constant lateness, his ditching people, his being gone at all hours, missing classes, and the beeper constantly being on call for something, showing up with weird, unexplained injuries, and she reveals that he's dealing drugs. And she asks them what they think.
And they laugh, and they laugh, and they laugh.
And then Mark shows up, says, "What's so funny?"
Well, before Mark shows up, I do think it's funny that they laugh, but she says, like, Amber says, like, I think it's ridiculous too, but it fits all the facts.
Mm-hmm. It really, honestly, it does.
It does. It totally does.
But Mark shows up, black eye and all, says, "What's so funny?" And Amber says, "Oh, nothing." And Mark starts pressing her about what they were joking about, assuming that it was about him. It's not always about you, Mark.
Although it was about him, so.
Although it was about him. But before anything can happen, his beeper goes off and he runs off. And Amber says, "What?" And, just that, indicating that kind of proves her point while William and Eve continue laughing. Mark then arrives at the Pentagon. Cecil tells him he's sending about a mission to chaperone a shuttle mission to Mars. His being there will be unofficial. No one on the ship is supposed to know that he's there. They just want to make sure that the astronauts all safely return. Mark agrees. He finds out that the mission is going to take 2 weeks.
What was that?
That the mission is going to take 2 weeks.
How many weeks?
2 weeks. If there's a joke here, I don't get it.
Total Recall, man.
I don't remember the line.
Arnold's wearing the robotic woman's head, and he's landing on Mars, and they ask him how long he's going to stay. 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah, and the voice starts distorting, keeps repeating it over and over. Okay, yeah, I get it. So the shuttle flies, and Mark flies up in secret alongside the shuttle, and they head off into space, and Cecil tells them that they're going to lose communication and tells them good luck. Cut back to the Angstrom lab with all the Angstroms, and Angstrom introducing the Mahler twins and revealing that he wants the Mahler twins to help him develop a way to transplant all the memories and knowledge of all the different dimensions that the different Angstroms possess to his own mind, so that he will be able to properly use his dimension hopping abilities. We then cut back to the space shuttle as it flies towards Mars, and Mark yawns. We then jump again to Chicago, I believe, and Titan in the offices of Machine Head, a crime boss supervillain, and his henchman Isotope, where Machine Head is giving him a dressing down, telling him, "You're dismissed, but I'll be keeping an eye on you."
He's better than the rest. That's a line to the song Machine Head by Bush.
I haven't heard that song in almost 20 years. Even though I just put the CDs on my iTunes about a month ago, or 2 months ago, because I still have their first 3 albums. We then cut back to Mark again, chaperoning the space shuttle. He takes off his helmet, begins to eat one of the sandwiches that his mother packed for him, only it's frozen in space, so it cracks into a bunch of pieces as he bites into it.
Yeah, that's a heck of a way for him to figure out. I mean, I guess he's been in space before, but he just like takes off his space helmet to eat the sandwich.
Well, the thing is, I guess it's the first time he ever tried eating a sandwich in space, so...
Yeah, but I mean, he's been in space, so I guess my point was, I guess this would be a heck of a way to find out that he can breathe in space or survive in space, but he's actually done it before, so...
Well, I think he had the helmet for communication, if anything, more than anything.
Oh, it might be like it might be this sort of like, he still needs to breathe, but he can process a breath for long periods of time, so
I think,
you know, he's wearing the helmet just for the extended trip.
And the space shuttle lands on Mars, and the astronauts all depart. There are 5 of them, I believe. They all bicker and talk, and one of them thinks that he sees a shadow of a man, but when the others turn to look, the shadow has disappeared. I'm assuming the shadow is... Okay, yeah.
Oh, you can see it's Mark. He lands on the tip of the...
Yeah, I never noticed that before. But yeah, I just noticed it. But the astronauts do not get far before they are met by a giant door opening in the ground, and a Martian on what I can only describe as a dewback.
I was hoping you were going to say a dewback.
Telling them that they are coming with them as prisoners, and their eyes all turn pink. Mark flies around, realizes he doesn't know where they went, and he sees the trapdoor start to close, rips it open, and a whole bunch of squid-like creatures fly at him, and they have tentacles that try to bite into his flesh, but they cannot break into his skin. There is electricity that surges that drops them all off them as 2 Martians approach and order him to come with them. He's taken down into their base, and they are told that the sequids, those are the starfish-like squid creatures that attacked Mark, have been in a frenzy since Mark and the astronauts, who they refer to as solids, have arrived. Mark is to have an audience with their monarch, and any questions he has will be addressed to him. Mark goes and sees the monarch. The monarch reveals that the sequids landed are a hive mind race that need to have a sentient human or humanoid or solid creature to attach to power their mind. They arrived on Mars millennia ago and as an invasion force, but because the Martians are naturally a fluid-like race of shapeshifters, the sequids were not able to bond with them, and the Martians have been exploiting them as slave labor for centuries and breeding them to be stronger and more powerful in order to be better slaves, and that the astronauts are going to be executed to prevent a sequid uprising. We then get a hard cut to the trapdoors exploding as Mark orders the astronauts to run as the entire Martian army comes after them. Mark shakes off the Martians, allowing the 5 astronauts to board the shuttle and take off. The astronauts fly off, and Mark accompanies them as, again, chaperoning. We then cut.
I wrote Invincible, Master of Diplomacy.
Yeah, I just love how it just goes from Invincible shouting executed to a sudden just escape, run!
He's just fighting Martians left and right, and they're running to the ship. He's taking on the whole Martian army. He's got the one in a headlock at one point.
Yeah, moments like that I love in this book.
No, I was going to say that due to Futurama, I read the Martians here in the voice of the Martians from Futurama, which, as best I can describe it, would be Native American voices using stereotypical Jewish dialect.
Okay, that I have to see, and that's weird.
Because they're parallels for the Native Americans on Futurama, because the Amy's family took over Mars and stole Mars from the natives for a single bead. But so there's a lot of parallels to Native Americans, but they talk in Native American type voices, but they say like "feh" all the time.
I kind of get the idea for that, because if you think about it, in the John Carter of Mars stories, the Red Martians are kind of stand-ins for Red Indians.
Right.
And the funny thing is, as an aside, I was watching a documentary thing a few weeks ago that explained the actual meaning behind the whole thing of selling Manhattan to the Indians or buying Manhattan from the Indians for beads.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was revealed that the Indians that the Dutch settlers gave the beads to buy the Manhattan Island were not actually the native tribe that had ownership of that area, and were neighbor ones that the ones who actually controlled the island would occasionally allow to come onto the land to fish. So the Dutch were actually screwed over by that tribe, because they weren't the ones that actually owned it. They bought it from someone who didn't own it, which is why the actual tribe that owned the land started to attack the Dutch in raids over the next several years.
Well,
until the Dutch fled.
On Futurama, the Martians are going to crush Amy with the bead that they were given for the purchase of Mars, and Amy points out that the bead is in fact a giant diamond. So they decide to leave Mars and go buy a better planet.
That's a better result. Anyways, back to Invincible. The astronauts fly off, and we have the captain and the pilot and co-pilot in the front seats. We have the three other astronauts in the back. But we see that the one in the middle does not have the same astronaut uniform as the others. He then concentrates, and the outfit changes to match the others.
It's so subtle, too. Like, I was looking at his face, and I wasn't looking at his uniform. And I'm like, what is going on here? Oh, the uniform's different.
Oh, yeah. It took me a moment, too. And we cut back to the last page, which is an astronaut, presumably the one that was replaced by the shapeshifter, standing alone on Mars with his helmet and breathing apparatus and backpack off, covered in sequids, with his eyes glowing black and an evil grin. I think this payoff is in the next volume.
I mean, the sequids remain reoccurring further down the line as well, so...
No, but I think the big Martian invasion thing, I don't think that's till like volume 5 or volume 6.
Ooh, I think it's much later than that. I think it's... My original time through Invincible, I think it was one of the last things I read, so like 8 or 9.
Okay, well, my point is it's one of the ones I actually have, because I do remember Invincible and Martian Man teaming, or... It's not Martian Man. What's the new one?
No, Martian Man was with a member of
right.
the Guardians that got killed. It's Shapesmith.
Shapesmith, but he's essentially he's a Martian too. Okay, so but anyways, I digress. Chapter 7, we open with the astronauts all in civilian gear and their NASA jackets, piling into a limo, except for one guy named Russ, saying that he just needs to get some sleep. So he says goodbye. He goes to his apartment. He looks for the mailbox with his name. Presses his thumb against the lock. His thumb extends into it, unlocking the mailbox. Gets his mail. and goes into his apartment and changes back to his regular Martian form and sits down.
I like that the NASA jackets look like something you would have gotten at Planet Hollywood in the 90s.
Oh, they totally do. Yeah. We cut to William's home. William comes down in a t-shirt and tidy whities. And Eve is laying on the bed under a blanket. Laying on a couch under a blanket. She spent the night on the couch. William says that his parents aren't going to be back for a while from their vacation, and Eve could have spent the night up in his bedroom with him. Eve gives William a nasty look and says, "You're a fun guy to be around, and I like you, but this isn't working out. I want to break up." And Eve looks really hot when she's angry.
Yes, she kind of does.
Although I'm surprised she's actually angry in that moment. Cut to...
She looks like Maureen O'Hara in A Quiet Man there.
Oh my god, she totally does.
There's a reference for you.
I grew up watching Maureen O'Hara movies. We then cut to the Grayson home, and Mark wakes up Debbie, who freaks out at being disturbed. We see a bunch of empty liquor bottles on her nightstand and on the floor. They have a brief conversation. Mark says that he's leaving to go see Amber for lunch. We then cut to the restaurant where they sit. But then Mark, beeper goes off and he ditches Amber. Mark's a bad boyfriend.
Well, Mark's a good superhero, and that sort of leads to him being bad at other things.
Yeah. Mark is flying. He is talking to Cecil over the communicator, and there's a building that was up for demolition that is being destroyed by Titan, who we had met earlier in one of the previous issues. And Titan reveals that he was destroying the building to try to draw attention from a superhero, and he's happy it's Invincible. Reveals that he wants to take down Machine Head, who is the big crime boss and biggest top crime boss in the country, but that none of the heroes go after him because they wouldn't be able to arrest him, or the only way to take him down is to kill him, and none of the heroes are prepared to do that. But Titan's looking for help taking them down, to stop the crime empire, and Invincible agrees to help him. Cecil tells him it's okay, but that they're going to be monitoring it in case something goes wrong. And Invincible picks up Titan, and they crash into the office of Machine Head. Machine Head reveals that he's been preparing for something like this, opens the trap door, and in walks half a dozen villains. We have Battle Beast for the first time. We have Magnatech, whose name doesn't really make sense to me, but
I think he throws blades magnetically, but I'm not positive about that.
I think that's what it's supposed to be. But he's kind of like a weird cross between Magneto, Shrapnel from Doom Patrol in the 80s, and kind of Strife.
Yeah, that's fair.
We got Kursk, who is a electric-powered guy from Russia. We got Furnace, who we saw in the last issue. Magmaniac, lava-powered guy. And the Tether Tyrant, with his really disgusting-looking chest thing.
Yeah, he's got like a pink bubblegum thing of a grabby arm, a non-shaped arm, tentacle thing coming out of his chest. Can we stop for a moment?
The bubble tape. Yeah, okay.
I was going to say, can we stop for a moment and revel in the fact that here we are, issue 19, first appearance of Battle Beast.
The thing I like about this is that Battle Beast is introduced, and he's just one of a bunch of generic.
He's no business. Like, okay, this is the first time we've seen him. Obviously, Derek and I know who he is from future issues. He has no business being here with these schmucks. It is a bunch of schmucks and one of the greatest warriors in the galaxy who just seems to be hanging out on Earth working for Machine Head.
Yeah, it makes no sense, and I just love that we're introduced to him as if he's just a throwaway guy, and then we get the battle. Everyone attacks. Invincible and Titan. I won't get into who's punching who, but there's a lot of back and forth. Magnum Maniac ends up actually burning the floor, so he falls away, so he's completely useless. They're all going back and forth when Invincible and Titan are overwhelmed and both are knocked unconscious. We get the great moment where Battleby says, "I have conquered 1,000 worlds. Countless enemies, galactic empires tremble at the sound of my name. What threat could a boy hold for me?"
He's not using hyperbole there, folks.
Nope. Then we have the Guardians show up, and they take on the fight under the leadership of the Immortal. Fight continues on when all of a sudden everyone stops because Battleby starts screaming while he's holding Bulletproof and Black Samson both by the head in both of his hands, blood smearing all over them. They look like they might be dead.
They're pretty beat up.
And Battleby just screams, "Is this the best you can offer? I could kill you all with my bare hands, but it would prove nothing. I come for sport, the thrill of the hunt. I was told this realm offered fierce and worthy combatants. I was deceived. You have nothing to offer me. You have been a pathetic waste of my time. Today is not a good day." I read the entire thing in Michael Dorn's voice.
I was thinking the same thing. Oh, I love Battleby so much. He's one of the best characters that we're going to get down the line, but this is his humble first appearance.
The first time we ever see him, the first time I read this, and he's introduced, I go, Battleby's, he's kind of like a He-Man character. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, and then
flip a couple of pages and go, oh my god, he could have killed literally everyone in there without even trying.
Right.
And he's so offended that everyone's so weak, he just leaves.
Folks, if you're not reading along with us, Battle Beast is a giant humanoid white tiger.
I think he's a lion because he's got like a mane.
Yeah, maybe. Well, he's white. He's a white feline humanoid with like essentially He-Man armor and giant swords.
Man, a white lion, He-Man warrior god monster from space. Can this guy be any more metal?
And his mane or his hair or whatever you want to call it is all braided in almost like Norse braids, and he's just awesome. Battle Beast is awesome.
Yeah, I just love that he just throws down Bulletproof and Samson to the ground, just disgusted, and just steps through a portal, and Invincible just looks up and says, "Jerk." This is my favorite moment in the entire volume. We then cut to the Pentagon, where Samson and Bulletproof are both laying in beds recuperating. They are hooked up to all kinds of breathing apparatuses and everything. Cecil's giving Mark talk. He tells him that just updating on a bunch of things, and says that he's free to go if he's fine. Mark leaves. He gets to his bedroom at his home and finds Eve waiting for him in his bedroom, which is a much more pleasant surprise than finding Cecil in your bedroom.
Mark's always finding something in his bedroom.
Always. And Eve reveals that she broke up with William. It says, "If you got a minute, I'd really like to talk to you. It's important." We then cut back to Machine Head's office, and Isotope, who had ditched the battle previously, returns, materializing, and he says it's going to take some cleaning up, but once that's out of the way, we can get down to business. Everything went according to plan. Machine Head and his entire inner circle are out of the picture. The rest of his men will fall into line. They'll need a leader. You'll be that leader. They will answer to you, boss. And it's Titan.
So the whole thing was a scam play by Titan to take over the mob.
Yeah. And that is Invincible Volume 4, Head of the Class. And I just realized we've been talking about this for 2-3 hours. I lost track of time. Maybe next time I'll just write out the plot synopsis.
It does help. Yeah, we've been talking for a little bit, so but I'm sure you pause a lot, so it'll get edited down.
Oh yeah. Well, no, That's because I'm trying to cover up my stammer. Anyways, so that's the book. I think we'll get into the ratings right now and just go over, because we're gonna go over the basics of what we thought about the book and the volume of that. What did you give this volume?
You know, I'm giving it a 4 because everything was solid, and it was much better than a 3. Sort of the odd thing about this this volume is most of the volumes are a contained story. This volume is 6 issues and an extra story of basically setup for like 5 or 6 other stories that are going to happen down the line. You know, you get a little bit of wrap up on the like what's going on with Mark and as far as finishing high school and his mom getting the money for his dad's books and everything. But for the most part, we're getting the first appearance of Battle Beast, who will be something later. The first appearance and setup for the Angstrom Levy storyline. The setup for the Martian storyline with the Sequids. It's kind of where are we going to go with Eve now that she's left William. The relationship between Mark and Amber. Nothing is wrapped up in this trade, and it's a bunch of setup for a bunch of different things that are going to happen down the line. It's very heavy on setup in this trade, but everything was enjoyable. So,
yeah, the only thing that gets paid off in this is we're introduced to Titan. We have we kind of get this rapport between Titan and Mark, where we get the idea that he's a criminal, but he's kind of a low-rank guy, and he doesn't seem like really all that much of a bad guy.
In fact, he makes a really good point about why it's better to be a villain than a hero.
Right, and it kind of gets you excited about the idea that he's going to end up being kind of a blue-collar superhero and ally to Mark. And then we get the big shock finale where, no, he played Mark all along. He is going to be a future big villain. Presumably, because I don't know if I ever see him again in any of the volumes I own. But yeah, no, everything else in this is all set up. We do have some really good dramatic stuff running throughout the course of this entire volume. All the stuff with Debbie, and the stuff with Amber, and that's all really meaty, good storytelling. But literally everything else is just one-off stuff that's not connected to anything else except to set up stuff that won't be paid off for another volume or 10 volumes down the line.
Right.
I give this a 4-star too because I really enjoy this. There's a lot of stuff I really like, but I can't give it a 5 because it's just too disjointed. There's not enough payoff things. And we do get that middle issue with the alien invasion where it just seems really contrived. Yeah.
No, I agree. A lot of strong character stuff, some good action, but certainly not the best the series has to offer. But not the worst by any means.
Oh, God, no. That was, we already covered that at the beginning of doing
I think we did. I don't think it gets bad again. I can't remember a down moment from this point on.
I would imagine we're going to get volumes in the future which are going to, again, be very disjointed and have a lot of setup stuff and not much payoff. But really, even with all that, yeah, we got really fun character moments. We got great comedy. We got great action, great drama, and maybe we got the Battle Beast.
I feel like most of the future volumes are contained story arcs. I'm sure there could be ones that are set up like this that I'm not remembering, but I know a lot of them are complete story arcs. So.
But yeah, man, Battle Beast.
Oh, dude, Battle Beast is awesome. I got my Battle Beast pin right here, and if they ever make more Invincible action figures, I hope Battle Beast is one of the first ones they make. Because and if they ever get around to making Invincible pops, I'd love a Battle Beast.
I want a Battle Beast pin now.
Oh, it's awesome. I have the full line of Skybound Invincible pins. I
remember seeing those on the website whenever you were telling me that about Skybound's website, and oh gosh, yeah, the action figures for Invincible and Adam Eve.
Yes.
Where you saw them at a convention, did you buy them?
Yeah, they're sitting right here.
Yeah, and I said, I gotta get these, so I looked them up, And you mentioned Skybound, which I hadn't heard about before, the website. So I went there, I looked them up, and found out that, yeah, I'm not ordering them because they're too damn expensive.
They're like $25 a piece.
Yeah, but whenever you throw on the import and shipping and handling, and then the exchange rate, and it's just not worth it.
Right.
Other than I really want an Adam Eve action figure.
I got them at a con, paid $25, so.
Oh.
Also,
yeah, well, that
also got
helps.
my Invincible and Adam Eve t-shirts at the same con, so.
Helps to go to a convention in Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, no, I enjoy this volume a lot. It's not perfect by any means, but it's really good, solid fun. So yeah, 4 stars. Anything else we want to talk about in this before we move on?
No, I think we've pretty well covered it. We'll visit Invincible one more time before the end of the year, according to our current schedule. So we got like halfway to 10 this year. So.
Yeah, it's kind of making me a little worried because I'm going to end up having to start buying new issues or volumes at some point soon.
Probably not until 2020 at the schedule we're going.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Well, I guess that's it. That's the wrap-up for Invincible Volume 4, Head of the Class by Robert Kirkman and Ryan Ottley. And, man, Battle Beast. And that's it for this week's episode of Derek and Matt Love Comics. You can, if you want to send us an email, have any questions, want to talk to us about what you thought about this volume of Invincible, have suggestions for future episodes, or just want to say hi, you can reach us at derekandmattlovecomics@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook.com, on Twitter, and on Instagram at Derek and Matt. You can find us on YouTube at Derek and Matt Love Comics. Find us on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, Google Play, and TuneIn. Remember, subscribe and rate us on iTunes. For any information you want to know about the greatest comic book shop in the galaxy, find it at galacticgregs.com. Next week on Derek and Matt Love Comics. What are we talking about, Matt?
This is Halloween. October is here as of next week. I'm going to give you more than what we're doing next week. I'm going to tell you what we're doing for the entire month of October, because we have some Halloween hijinks planned for the month, and I feel like when we did the schedule for the year, this was the strongest month we laid out. October is 5 weeks. You're going to get 5 Halloween-related shows from us this year. Next week, our top 5 favorite movie monsters. The following week, our top 5 favorite comic book monsters. The following week, we are reviewing the original classic, Ghostbusters. And the week after that, we are going to review the sequel, Ghostbusters 2. And to top off Halloween, the week of Halloween, listen to it on Halloween if it fits into your schedule, we are reviewing It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. So how's that for a Halloween lineup?
It's pretty good. I'm looking forward to it. I hope the listeners are too.
And then I'm instantly going to start playing Christmas music.
Could we get through this month first?
Yes. No, at the end of October, I
got to really amp up my Halloween horror movie watching. In fact, maybe I'll watch a couple tonight. Music for this episode, Hero Theme and Adventure Meme by Kevin MacLeod, Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. Any last words, Matt?
Whoever heard of School in July?
Nobody's going to put me in a balloon again.